Since then, the fate of the main character has changed. The white mecha was able to defeat the other one. The girl sitting near the hero inside the robot admired how strong this mecha was. Some time ago, a school excursion was coming up. The hero was really looking forward to this day. He was sitting on the bus, clenching his fists on his knees. There was one girl that the hero liked from the very first grade, and on this day the hero was going to confess his feelings to her. The girl sitting next to her asked the guy why he was nervous. She just asked him not to say that he was a coward now. The guy stuttered and answered that he was not nervous, and she immediately said not to lie to her. He always looked like that when he was worried. This girl sitting next to him, who couldn't understand the guy's feelings, his childhood friend, technically, he is helping him with his plan. She asked if he really confessed to that girl. She said that that girl is not only for their class, but for the whole school. She is one of the few beauties of their city. After all, it is sure Yuki Yui, or he forgot. The guy looked at Yui in front and said that he knows everything and this is her friend's only chance. If anything happens, let him watch what he says. The girlfriend did not calm down, saying that she was helping him for free. By the way, how could he say such a thing? He got nervous, scared, and asked for forgiveness, saying that he would not do it again. Suddenly something started to happen with the bus. The school children screamed, frightened and thinking it was an earthquake. The bus continued to rock, while the students screamed in panic, asking what was going on and telling each other to hold on tight. Teacher Minami shouted to all the students that they should remain calm and hold on to the handrails. The bus stopped, finding itself in front of a huge palace. The students noticed that they were all gone and asked each other what had happened. The hero looked in shock at the place where they found themselves, wondering if this was Japan. The bus door opened and people in knight's armor appeared outside, ordering everyone to get off the bus. The children began to go outside. The hero, seeing something, shuddered. A huge robot grabbed their bus, lifting it into the air. Nagisa hid behind Yuta, looking worried and calling him. The hero tried to calm her down, saying that everything was fine because it didn't look like these people wanted to harm them, although he himself wasn't particularly sure about that. They approached them, apologizing for such rude manners that they showed. In front of them was a man who introduced himself as the manager of this bomber summoning center, although he believed that they Earthlings called this place another world. The schoolchildren were shocked. The teacher asked the man if he knew what had happened to them. The man replied that of course he knew. They had called them to this place to sell them to others after all. Everyone around him didn't understand why something like this was happening. The man explained that this world uses ancient tools called bellows. Construction, transportation, and many other things use bellows. These bellows use a special type of energy and communication. He said that in this world of Fabra, only a few have such energy. They don't have enough pilots at all. The teacher asked what it means. The manager said that they Earthlings have this energy potential Ludia. They have a lot of such people, so they did a lot of research and calculations to call them. The woman screamed about how selfish it is. The guard attacked the woman from behind, pinning her to the ground. The manager said he was truly sorry, but the status of such pilots was very high in their world and he did not think they would have a bad life. He added that in any case, everything will be decided tomorrow, and they should pray that they have a high Rudia rate and rest. A little later in the palace, a guard was guarding the door. There were schoolchildren sitting inside. One guy called Yuta, asking if he was interested in what this value of the weapon was. The hero was surprised at how quickly Haranishi adapted. He replied that they would be treated better if the value was high. Of course, he would like a high value. Haranishi looked to the side and asked Mikake what he thought. Mikake thoughtfully said that he had no idea what it was. Maybe that man was just fooling them. But if that was the case, then sure Yuki would most likely have the highest potential. Everyone turned to the girl. The hero thought that they didn't have a single clue, but he also thought that sure Yuki Yui would have the highest score. The next day, schoolchildren stood in line at the huge machine. The first schoolboy passed the test. Around shouted that his potential of Rudia is equal to 12,000 and it is a Highlander. They were glad that someone came for 10,000 and it was only the first. In the end, someone with more than 20,000 can appear. The hero saw Ivanami from the football team and understood that 10,000 Rudia means a high value. He thought that then the double Highlander was someone with a value of more than 20,000, and judging by their reactions, it was probably something very rare. When the next student stood up, the man shouted that he had 29,000 and he was a double Highlander, and it was amazing that he was so close to a triple. They said that to think that they had two Highlanders, maybe this time they hit the jackpot. Next came Haranishi, and when he stood up the device showed that he had 3,300. The guy kept asking again, starting to irritate the men. The next indicators were 2,200, 2,500, 3,800. When Sure Yuki EU stepped on the device showed that her Rudia potential was 36,000 and she was a triple high leader. The hero thought that the girl was completely different. Everyone around started clapping, and the hero wondered if the triple Highlander was really that good. They applauded as if it was some kind of concert, but the hero was also interested in what would happen to Nagisa, who was standing in front of him in line. When it was her turn, they announced that her result was 6,500, and she was half Highlander. The hero thought that 5 people had crossed the 5,000 mark, which meant Nagisa had a good value. The girl, noticing his gaze, smiled. He smiled back at her. Finally, it was his turn. He thought about how these numbers meant everything in this world. Despite all this, he was still interested. When he stood under the machine, the man cried out in surprise. The man announced that the hero's result was 2. Everyone asked again. Another man looked at the numbers and declared that there could be no mistake, and that his weapon potential was indeed equal to 2. A man walked onto the stage, announcing that they were starting their auction, and the crowd erupted in joyful cheers. The first guy to come out on stage was a guy with a potential of 12,000 Highlander ore, and the starting price was 10 million gold. People offered 30 million, someone shouted that he would give 50 million, and someone offered as much as 100 million. The hero was surprised by the auction because he had never seen anything like it. The host announced that it looked like no one else would bid, so it was sold to the Valkyria Empire for 160 million gold. Shirayuki come to mind. They will no longer be able to see each other at this time was given to the Kingdom of Ruble for 1.2 billion gold. Everything became such that no one thought about the school excursion anymore. The host announced that the main event of the evening was coming and their biggest pearl was coming out, a triple Highlander with a potential of 36,000 Rudia. The starting price was immediately 1 billion, it quickly reached 2, and then 2.5 billion, and this was very different from what it was before. Someone number 3 offered a price of 12 billion. Everyone immediately fell silent, and the host asked if anyone was still betting, and after a moment of silence he announced that the Empire of Iria was then sold for 12 billion. Others whispered that Erisha had entered again recently, only they had the highest ore, but nothing could be done, because someone had heard that they had found new deposits of orichalcium. The next lot was a half Highlander with a 6,500 rudium potential. The hero watched Nagisa. The girl looked at Yuta and said goodbye to him with a smile while people in the hall made bets. The amount reached 20 million gold. The host announced the victory of the Amria Empire for 20 million gold. The hero recalled his thoughts about confessing to Shirayuki during the school excursion. This is not what he wanted, but it is fate. The host announced that now there would be a very sad example of a pilot. This is not something that can be put up for auction, but since these are the rules, they are obliged to show it at auction and announce that the weapon's potential is 2 and it is completely useless, but maybe someone will want to take a souvenir for themselves. The audience laughed, asking if such potential was possible. Everyone laughed at the hero while he stood on stage. Even his classmates started to mock him, calling him pathetic and laughing. The hero felt despair. Yui and Nagisa looked at him. The host asked if there really would be no takers even for 1 coin. And then a man stood up, saying that he would take it, but would not give even 1 gold piece, and all he was offering was 2 nuts. The hero was loaded into a cart with a grate and was moving away. Nagisa noticed how the cart was leaving. A luxurious carriage was waiting for her when she turned, calling out to Yuta. It was evening. In the middle of the field there was a lonely wooden house, and the man roughly pushed the hero, telling him to come in. He announced that this was now Yuta's house. Yuta turned around, seeing other people there. Yuta asked about food and was told that they had already fed him today, and he needed to wait tomorrow. The hero asked if he was joking, but the door closed. He sat down by the wall and someone came up to him, calling out. A girl in rags appeared in front of him, asking if he was hungry. The hero immediately noticed the disheveled hair and torn clothes, finally realizing what kind of place this was. This is a different world and there is recruitment in it. He thought about Nagisa and Shirayuki, wondering what will happen to him now. 2 guards stood at the gate, and one said that he heard that someone with the potential of the Rudia 2 was summoned. The second confirmed this by saying that he watched, and these from the door. But the man noticed that the arrow looked like it had gone all the way around the circle. The second one said that it couldn't be because the device was capable of assessing potential up to 100,000. However, the knight decided that his colleague was right because he had never seen anyone with potential of 100,000. At this level, the hero won't even be able to activate the mech in any way. In another place at this time, there stood a huge mecha, as if waiting for its moment. The girl handed the hero the food, telling him to take it. Granny called Nanami to the side, asking if this wasn't her food for a rainy day and if she was sure she wanted to give it to the new guy. The girl turned to the old woman, saying that the feeling of hunger is suffering and Nanami knows it. The hero silently looked at the girl. Yuta smiled, thanking her and saying that her sincerity was all he needed. The girl told him not to be silly because even they didn't know if they would be fed tomorrow. The guy froze, asking if she was serious. The girl said that they were usually fed once every 3 days and it was better for him to eat what she gave him. The guy accepted it thinking that such a small child was in such a place. He agreed, but suggested eating it together in half. The girl asked again. Yuta smiled saying that yes, it tastes better when you eat it with someone. Some time later they were already asleep. The hero shook from the cold, not knowing how to fall asleep. Behind him was Nanami, who lay down next to him and pressed herself against his back. The guy turned around, not understanding why the girl was next to him. The girl had already fallen asleep behind him. In the morning, a man entered the barn telling everyone to wake up because it was time to work. The hero thought about how he didn't want to sleep because he couldn't get enough sleep. But now the hero understood what life the servants had. He noticed Nanami not far from him. The girl, noticing him, smiled and waved. He wondered if the girl had lived like this all her life and if she was going to continue living like this until her death. He wanted to do something, but now he was useless. The man brought them food, and the hero was surprised at the small amount of food for the whole day. Nanami said that it was better than nothing. The guy casually asked her how she got to this place. The girl sadly replied that her mother had sent her to this place. The guy realized how wrong he had been in asking about this. But Nanami suddenly smiled and said that she would get money for a whole month for giving it to her. That's what they told her, and Nanami didn't mind. The hero sighed with a smile. When everyone went back to bed, the guy felt the girl behind him shaking and asked Nanami if everything was okay. He saw her start to cry. He apologized to Nanami because he made her remember something bad. The girl said that she was fine because she helped her family and now they can fill their bellies so everything is fine. The hero reproached himself, calling himself a fool because her own family had abandoned her. Naturally, everything couldn't be good. He pressed the girl to himself, hugging her. That day, Nanami cried into his chest the whole night. After that, they seemed to become closer. She also began to call him differently. The girl ran up to him, showing him the doll she had found near the mansion. The guy praised her, saying that she seemed to have found a new friend. But that evening, he woke up hearing a man yelling at Nanami, asking where she got it from. He accused her of stealing a doll from the mansion and told her to know her place. Yuta rushed towards them, telling him to stop. The hero lied that he found it outside the mansion and the doll was not from this place. The man hit Yuta, telling him not to lie and return the doll. The man took the doll and left, and the girl ran to the hero, calling him and asking if he was okay. The guy replied that it was nothing. He apologized to Nanami for not being able to protect her friend, but she hugged him, saying that she thought Yuta was more important. The guy smiled, thinking about what a good girl she was. Days passed. The man came out of the barn saying that there was no more work for today nor food. The girl noticed Yuta standing at the closed door and called out to him. The guy asked if the man hadn't closed the door, and the grandmother behind him said that it was because the ore level was the key to this door. It was set up so that it couldn't be opened by anyone with an ore potential below 300. And in this place there were people with a level below 100, so no one could get out. The old woman sighed, saying that at first it was very upsetting. It became clear to the hero why everyone lived like this, and he reached for the handle. Suddenly the door opened. Everyone was shocked by what they saw. The guy called Nanami, saying that he wanted to run away and asked if she wanted to come with him. The old lady behind him called out to Yuta, asking what his potential was, and he replied too, asking what it was. The guys were walking along the embankment, and the hero was talking about what a big city it was and that it wouldn't hurt for them to find a job. He asked Nanami to wait, and he would make it so that she could fill her belly to the brim. In all the places where they even needed employees, the hero was refused only after hearing that his weapon potential was equal to 2 and was told to ask somewhere else. They approached the sailor asking if he needed workers, and he was surprised when he heard that his potential was 2, but still gave his consent to work on the ship. He explained that everything was simple. They just needed to make the ship sail. They would be given 2 bowls of soup and 3 zlotys for 1 trip, and everyone was happy. He took them to a room, saying that they could sleep there. There were a bunch of other men inside, and he finally told them to ask the locals if they had any more questions. One of them saw the newcomers and asked what their names were, and the guys introduced themselves. The man asked about the potential of the weapon, and hearing the answer sighed, but said that it was better than nothing. He pointed them to the mechanism, saying that their job was to turn this big gear, and it would be easier if his weapon level was higher, or so they said. But everything in this place with a level below 100 is ultimately very difficult, and they should be prepared. Yuta asked about a place to stay for the night, and the man said that they would eat and sleep in this room. Yuta asked if they could go outside, and the man asked the hero who he thought he was. The hero was told that he had come aboard the ship as a servant again. The ship raised anchor and the bell rang. All the men rushed to the mechanism shouting that they needed to prepare for departure. They began to turn the mechanism, and the ship's engine started working. The boy thought it looked complicated, but even so he would do his best. He grabbed the lever. Suddenly the mechanism accelerated, hitting the hero in the back, and he did not understand what it was. Everyone watched in surprise. The ship's propeller instantly accelerated. Someone from the deck shouted, not understanding what was happening, and shouted that it was great and ordered not to lower the sails because they would only slow us down. Finally, they arrived in the city, and the man said that they all did well and gave them a reward of 10 gold each and allowed them to leave the ship. The workers were happy and rejoiced. The hero asked if everyone would just run away once they were outside, and another sailor replied that they couldn't if they went somewhere and with their level of weapons, and this ship was the best place for people like them to earn money for food. Yuta asked Nanami if she wanted to stay, and she said she wanted to be with him. He asked if she was sure because they might end up starving. But even so, Nanami wanted to be with him, and he smiled and said that then it was time for them to go. At this time in another place, a huge mansion, the girl asked what Nagisa's name was. Nagisa Hikari introduced herself to her, and the girl said that she was the second princess of Amria Lainel. Seeing Nagisa's strange expression, he said that of course she would be worried. After all, she had just been given away after arriving in another world. But she shouldn't worry, because Lainel promised that she would be treated like royalty. She said that pilots with high potential were treated well wherever they went in a small country like theirs, and they would certainly pamper her. Nagisa asked if the girl wanted to say that those below her were treated poorly. The princess remembered that there was someone with very low Rudia potential at the auction. Nagisa cried, asking what happened to him and saying that she was worried about him. Lainel was surprised. Nagisa admitted that she loves Yudo and has for a very long time. Lainel hugged the girl and promised that she would find that guy and maybe they could take him for themselves. Nagisa asked if this was true, and the princess asked to be given it to her. Sometime later, the man sitting on the throne finally saw the half-Highlander and said that he was glad to meet you, introducing himself as the ruler of Amria. Majunie. Nagisa introduced herself to him as well. Lainel shouted to her father that Nagisa was nervous and he should smile. The man replied that it was his fault and smiled, and his daughter told him that it looked creepy. Someone from the side asked to introduce her too. It was Himari. Even though she is the third princess of this country, she is also the most wild. But Himari rejected this statement. Lainel asked her where Yukiha is now, and the girl replied that wasn't she where she usually was. They walked on and Lainel said that was great, she just wanted to show Nagisa something. Nagisa was surprised to see a huge robot. Lainel shouted for Yukiha to come out and introduce herself. The robot's body began to open. A girl climbed out of the robot and saw a girl who was half Highlander. She introduced herself as Yukiha, the first princess, and was glad to meet you. She got straight to the point and suggested going to see Nagisa's fur. Rasper's magical mecha. It requires a 5,000 Rudia value to operate, and its maximum level is 12,000. It has B rank armor and its strength is A rank, and it is the strongest mecha in their country. Lainel said that even with the highest Rudia value, Yukiha couldn't activate it. That's why they needed a raft with at least 5,000 Rudia potential. Nagisa asked if they were going to use it in wars. Yukiha replied that it was true that other countries might do that, but a peaceful country like Amria wouldn't use them for war. Nagisa doubted that was true. Elsewhere, Yuta called Nanami to the clothing counter. He asked her which one she wanted, and she asked if he was sure. She said that she would choose clothes for the first time, and she chose one. The seller said that they would have 2 gold and 20 silver. The guy was surprised to hear about silver. The guy finally began to understand the local currency. He paid the seller. He and Nanami had a total of 17 gold and 80 silver coins. A large loaf of bread costs about 50 silver, and 100 silver coins equals 1 gold. It looked like they could even find a place to stay for the night. He asked Nanami how happy she looked with her new clothes and shoes. He added that they would look as good as new when they took a bath later. The girl was surprised because it was her first time in the bath. The guy screamed, asking if she was serious. Arriving at the hotel, the guy asked if they had baths and they answered that they did, although they were small. The guy rented 1 room and they took 2 gold from them. When they entered the room, the guy thought that this would be his first bed since arriving in this world. Entering the bath, he noticed that the water seemed good and told Nanami that they would go together. The girl sat quietly while he poured water on her head. Nanami was surprised, happily saying that she was warm. She smiled happily at Yudo. Seeing that the guy hesitated, she asked what happened. Yudo asked how old she was. Nanami answered that she was 14. The guy was surprised because he thought she was 10. It was very bad, even though he was only 3 years older, but in Japan he would have been jailed. He asked Nanami if she could take a bath herself. She didn't understand why and asked to do it together because she had never washed herself before. He stayed anyway and they came to an agreement. Nanami also offered to wash Yuta and rubbed his back. While they were washing, the girl suggested that they always be together. The guy smiled and said that he would always be with her. Nanami, who was given away by her parents, seems to look at him as an older brother. And what can he do as Nanami's only family? He would give her enough food and let her study. He changed into new clothes and the girl called out to him. She asked if the new dress suited her. He said it suited her very well. They went forward, and he thought that he would begin by improving their living conditions. The hero sighed because today he couldn't find a job either. He was still stuck with a Rudia value of 2. He apologized to Nanami because he thought this life would continue for a while. The girl said that everything was fine as long as he was with her. Someone, apologizing, approached them and asked if they were looking for work. The man said he had a job that paid 50 gold a month. The guy was surprised because that was a lot of money, but he hesitated. He asked the man what kind of work it was. He said that he had a daughter about their age and he needed them to talk to her. The guys thought about it. Yuta cried out in surprise asking if that was all it took and said he could try. The man was confident they could do it and introduced himself as Belfast. In a Belfast mansion, a guy was surprised to see a girl with animal ears. The girl turned to them. Belfast asked if they were surprised. He said that this half-blood phenomenon was a curse of sorts. As a noble of the kingdom, he had his share of business enemies, and it seemed like someone somewhere held a deep grudge against him. That was why his daughter was like this, and he couldn't help but feel sorry for her. Yudo reached out to her, but she pulled away from him. She looked questioningly at the boys who had arrived. He introduced himself and Nanami and asked her name. The girl reached out to his hand. She introduced herself as Falma. And he said that from now on they were friends and she could tell them whatever she wanted. She was born in this form and until recently lived locked in her room. This is the first time she has spoken to anyone outside of her family, let alone friends. It is no wonder she is wary. Nanami grabbed Falma's hand and asked her to play with her. The girl asked if Nanami really wanted to play with her and if she wasn't afraid of her. Nanami didn't understand what she was talking about and Falma was happy. Belfast noticed that his daughter looked very happy, and the hero thought that with Nanami it was impossible to resist. Yuta said that Nanami was also happy that she had a friend her age. The man said that he had actually brought people here before, but when he showed them his daughter, they screamed that she was a monster and ran away. That's why he turned to them and he was glad that it was them this time. He said they would have their own room and board, now it was their mansion and they could feel at home. From that day on they lived in Belfort's house, decent food and bed, spending time playing with Falma. A month later, Nanani and Falma became like sisters. The girls called Yuta to play because it was his turn to drive. The guy, out of breath, asked them to wait because he was too energetic. He saw an open door and looked in. Inside, he saw a huge robot. Falma came up to him asking what happened and he asked what it was. She said it was a mech that her father had bought a long time ago. After excavating it, a triple Highlander came on board, but it didn't work, it seemed to be broken, because there is no mech that a triple Highlander couldn't operate, so her father bought it as a collector's item. Hearing about the excavations, the hero asked if the bellows had not been built. Falma said that it seemed that the mech core could not be recreated with technology, so they were digging up mechs from old civilizations and restoring everything except the core. The guy was surprised at how much she knew. The girl said that it was because she liked mechs. She found them charming because they couldn't be made from scratch with current magical technology, and she was also attracted to their unknown power. The guy said it didn't matter to him whether the thing worked, after all, his value was weapons. The girl was surprised because she had never heard of such a thing before. He agreed that it was low and asked how much she had. She said she had 7,800. He shouted that it was cool. Nanami ran up to them asking what happened and Falma asked Nanami if she knew her Rudia level. The guy said that if she couldn't open the door to the servant's room, then she must be low. Nanami said that she had never touched that door. The boy wondered if there was a possibility that Nanami's Rudia value was also high. After some time, they had a chance to find out the meaning of Nanami's Rudia. Belfast was so caring and had the common sense to call the company to measure the potential of Nanami's Rudia. It turned out that Rudia was 32,000 and was a triple Highlander. Belfast said that it was of great importance, and if she wanted, he could introduce her to the royal family of this country. But the girl refused, saying that she would stay with Yuta and Falma. The man stroked the girl on the head, saying that Falma had very good friends. Elsewhere, you thought about how strange this world was, this strange auction. Everyone in her class was separated. She thought about Yudo. The man announced that they had arrived and ordered a salute to Yui's triple Highlander. The guards stood in a greeting position. Helping her out of the carriage, the man told her to watch her step. At that moment the girl thought that she was not so great and did not deserve this. The man on the throne said she was a young girl, and he liked that she didn't look like a triple Highlander. A servant nearby asked Yui to bow her head in the presence of the emperor, but the emperor said that she did not have to bow. He said that she was special, she was the 5th triple Highlander in his kingdom. Instead of bowing she should swear allegiance to him with her power. The servant asked Yui to come with him. Before he showed her her room, he wanted to show her her fur. They entered a huge room with robots, and the man said that what she sees are ordinary mechs, and the mechs of advanced pilots are behind. He asked her to follow him and said that he was going to open the hangar for her, so he asked her to be careful. He asked to look at the girl in her fur. He showed the Elval mech, the activation value of 30,000 ordnance, maximum exhaust of 3 million, armor rank SS rank, starting strength SS. The guy behind her said that this was a truly monstrous mecha. The man next to her agreed with him. The guy realized that she was a new pilot and introduced himself as Yudo. He said that he was also taken only 5 years ago. They are both Japanese, so if something is unclear she can ask him. A worker called from behind Yudo, saying that they have already finished the maintenance of the Ajura. Yudo told the girl that it seemed like he had been called, so it was time for him to go. The man said that this was Yudo, a 5-time Highlander, and his Ludia value was 57,000. He was considered the strongest pilot on the continent. The girl repeated his words about the strongest. The man said that because of Yudo, their empire is the strongest on the continent, and that is why he sometimes has more power than the emperor himself. He whispered to Yui that there is nothing wrong with getting to know him better. The man added that he would ask someone to teach her how to control Elvala later, and hoped that she would quickly get the hang of it and become a force for good in this country. The girl said that she had a request, and the man asked what kind of request she had. She said that at the auction there was a boy who was given away for a nut, and the man remembered the defective one with the value of the Ludia too. The girl screamed that he was not like that at all, and the man apologized. She said that she was worried about what had happened to him and asked if she could find out about it. The man agreed, saying that he would have Erishia pick up the boy. The girl thanked him. She had liked Yuto's honest and kind nature since 1st grade. But by the time Yui realized her feelings, it was already too late. She was going to gather up the courage to tell him during the school trip. She imagined telling him. Elsewhere, Belfast entered the house and told the boys that the meaning of Nanami's weapon had leaked to the government, and the military had already moved out. The hero was horrified, and the man said that the army would soon be with them. He would stay and stall for time, and he should take Nanami and leave quickly. There was already a knock on the door calling for Lord Belfast and saying that this was the 6th Mech Regiment of the Rildown Army, and by royal decree they were ordered to call the Triple Highlander, and they wanted to make that task as easy as possible, so they asked to open the door nicely. The man shouted that he couldn't do it. Yudo told Nanami that they had to get out. Falma was upset to see them leave her. The soldiers at the door realized that knocking was useless. Belfast told the boys that he knew it had been a short time, but he had to thank them for bringing normal happiness to his daughter. While he was thanking them, the door behind which he stood was pierced by many swords. Belfast was hit right in the back and fell to the floor. The 3 boys were shocked. Falma screamed and rushed to her father. He began to apologize to her for not being able to. The girl cried, calling her father and asking him not to die. The man stroked her head and asked Yudo to take Falma with him, because he didn't want her to be alone anymore. The boy immediately agreed, and the father called his daughter. He said he was so happy to see her playing like a normal girl and asked if she was happy now. She said of course she was. Laying her father's head on her lap, she said that she had been happy since birth. The man smiled, cried, and finally understood her. There was a noise behind the doors again, and Yuto grabbed Falma, shouting at the girls that they couldn't stay here any longer. There were a lot of guards behind the doors. The boys were hiding around the corner. Yuto said that the army was already everywhere and that there were a lot of people in their regiment. Nanami asked if they could hide in that fur. The guy didn't know, like Falma said, that there was a hatch in the chest. Nanami grabbed the ladder for them. The guy froze near the huge machine, and then they began to climb inside. Inside was a chair with controls. The guy finally understood what the pilot's cabin was like. Nanami sighed as there was barely enough room for 3 people inside. The boy closed the hatch, asking Falma what was in the box she was holding. The girl replied that her dad said to take it just in case. The boy hissed, saying that it looked like there was someone outside. Inside the mech's chamber, Falma said it was Zophis, Rildan's war mech. One pilot asked another if he had seen anyone enter the place, and the other said he was sure of it. They noticed the fur inside and said it was a battered antique. One of them said that they came for the Triple Highlander and she might be there. He thought they could defeat this antique. The second said that they should destroy it just in case and asked to lend his spear. Nanami inside asked Yudo to speed up because she was scared. Falma didn't understand what to do. Yudo grabbed the control handles, asking if it wasn't working. Suddenly the mecha activated, but the enemy's spear was already close, and Falma screamed at Yudo to be careful. Yudo was able to make the mecha duck, avoiding the blow. The guards were shocked that this antique moved. Falma told Yudo that the mechs are controlled through consciousness, and he just needs to imagine that he is moving it with his mind. The guard told the other to stay calm because together they could handle it. Yudo told the girls that they were unarmed and asked if the mech had any weapons. They shouted to Falmi asking what to do. The girl remembered her father and said that they didn't need a weapon, he just needed to hit them. The boy hesitated but did as she said, hitting the enemy. The pilot did not understand what was happening because the fist broke through Zophas's D armor. Yudo was surprised at how powerful the mecha was. Falma could not believe that Zophas, the main mecha of the Rildan army, was not comparable to their mecha. Nanami was delighted, saying that this mecha was very strong. They decided to break through with a fight and leave. The guy's mech destroyed the enemy's mech with one blow, and it flew out the door. Falma was surprised that Zophas, the main support of Rildan, was not comparable to their fur. Yudo said that they needed to get out of this treasure. They moved forward. Ahead of them were 3 more enemy mechs, already waiting for them. The pilots asked what kind of mech it was and if the 2 that came before them had been killed by it. One of the soldiers said that it could be a triple Highlander piloting it, so he ordered to surround it and capture it. The soldiers accepted the order to raise their weapons. One mecha with a huge axe raised its weapon to strike. The hero managed to grab one mecha by the axe and grab another by the spear. But the third one was already above them, raising her weapon to strike. The hero, angry, lifted one of the furs into the air with all his might, depriving it of its support. In the end, the blow landed on this fur because he used it as a shield. The severed fur fell to the ground. The soldier was amazed at this strength. The hero's mech kicked the second mech. There was only one enemy left. He raised his sword to strike, and the hero was already preparing to attack. There was a ringing sound, and the enemy appeared behind Yudo. He fell down dead along with the others. The hero finally exhaled after the fight. He asked the girls where they should run. Falma said that if they went to the trading country of Alpeka, Rildan's army might not be able to touch them there. Their location was very close to the border, and there was little traffic on the roads, so it was a good place to run. Nanami reminded that the fur would be conspicuous. Falma said that she wished they had a carrier, but she didn't know anyone who had one. Only those who use them for work or rich people have them. Yudo apologized to Falma for the fact that because of them her father was killed. The girl, holding the box, said that it was not Yuda and Nanami's fault, it was Rildan's fault. She said angrily that she would never forgive them for this. Nanami suggested that they avenge her friend's father and destroy Rildan. Yudo quickly agreed. The girl thanked them and said that they would then go to Alpeka and get a powerful mecha for Nanami. She also said that she didn't think that the value of the Yuta rudium equal to 2 is wrong, because the mech couldn't be launched by a triple Highlander. She suggested that perhaps he even has something more that goes beyond the standard. The huge bird was eating the remains lying on the ground, but was scared off by an approaching fur. The people in the country that took her were generally friendly. The food was luxurious, the housing was spacious and clean, and they respected and honored her. But that's not what she wanted. What she wanted was that as a teacher she had to ensure the safety of everyone in the class and return them to the old world. Captain Mazzi told Deputy Commander Ruriko to strike the troops in front and take the second platoon to go behind them. The teacher accepted the order. He relayed on a private line that he knew it wasn't the best time, but he wanted to tell her something important when this battle was over, asking her to make time for him. The girl, embarrassed, agreed. One of the pilots reported that he saw enemy forces and they had 12 combat mechs. Ruriko told Captain Mazzi that it was 2nd platoon and they were in position. He transmitted over the radio for all units to keep this in mind and said that they would be attacking enemy forces from 3 directions and they needed to wait for his signal. Command gave the order for them to attack and the battle mechs rushed into battle. Rurika took down her enemies one by one, bringing down those who were nearby. Having cleared and eliminated all the enemies, the girl, holding the swords, conveyed that the area was under control. Standing in front of several furs that were still standing but smoking, she ordered them to get out of their furs and surrender. The girl exhaled, adjusting her headdress. The mechs began to open, revealing their pilots, and the teacher was horrified. In front of her were 2 students, Uba Sakura and Nami Taguchi. She didn't understand why her students were in such a place. Mecha held out his swords in front of them, asking the schoolgirls where the rest of the troops were, and Sakura replied that she didn't know. For this she was wounded in the arm with a sword, and the girl screamed in pain, clutching at her wounded wrist. The man asked again where the others were, and the girl screamed and swore through her tears that she really didn't know. Ruriko watched this in horror as her commander, saying that he was about to raise his sword over the crying girl. The teacher moved from her place, blocking Mazi's sword and preventing him from killing her students. The commander called out to Ruriko, not understanding what she was doing. The girl entered into battle with him, asking what he was doing with her students. Mazi shouted at her saying that he was the one she was attacking now and asked why she was doing this. The other soldiers called the deputy commander, asking what she was doing and shouted for someone to stop her. But Rurika had already defeated him. She exhaled as the soldiers continued to call her, asking why she was doing this. In this incomprehensible world, her students are forced to kill each other, and she will not allow it. The teacher told Uba and Taguchi to get into their bellows quickly. The tearful girl immediately recognized her teacher. She shouted at the girls to hurry up and they walk as fast as they can, but an obstacle stood in front of them. Another mecha pointed a sword at her, telling the second in command Ruriko that he won't let her go. She tied her hair into a ponytail, thinking that all she wanted was to keep her students safe. And she wants them all to return to the world they came from. The hero and the girls arrived in the trading country of Alreka. The city center looks rich and prosperous, but the outskirts are full of low-rise buildings and slums. Yudo asked Falma if she had changed her mind yet, and she answered without a doubt that no, they would sell the jewelry. The guy tried to convince her, but the girl was determined, and despite the persuasion, she stood her ground. Then Yudo asked what Belfast's most valuable piece of jewelry was so that they would be careful and not immediately sell it cheap. They decided to take a simple thing and ask about the price, but they really didn't know how to find someone they could trust. They went to the first merchant and he said that the decoration was good, estimating it at 2 million maximum. The second said that the thing was good, but the model was old, estimating it at 1 million and no more. The third said that it was a cheap fake and that he would only give 100,000 for it. Three were sitting at a table, and the hero said that it turns out they will have to sell it to that seller who offered 2 million for it. The girls agreed with him. They were called from the side and they turned around. A man stood nearby, advising them not to go to that merchant because they would regret it. The boys were surprised, considering him suspicious. The man apologized and introduced himself to them as Jean, saying that he was glad to meet them. The hero asked what he wanted to say earlier. The man said that the merchant was famous for his fast hands. Of course, he would lower the price of the first item, but he would lower the price of the rest of the items and make it so that it would be difficult to buy cheap ones for steel. This city is just one of those. Yuta understood him, and then Jean made them an offer to hire him. The hero was surprised, and Jean asked if each merchant offered them a different amount, right? And he could sell it to the merchant for a price 1.2 times higher and take 10% for the work from the sale. If he couldn't sell anything, then he wouldn't demand anything. The hero thought that they had nothing to lose. He whispered to Falma that he was not a good bargainer, so he offered to hire Jean, and the girl agreed. After some time in the shop, the merchant, having examined the decoration, said that he had good and bad news and announced that the full price would be 10 million. Jean, having asked again, told the guys that they were leaving to look for another place. The merchant cried out that he would raise the price to 12 million or more. Another trader offered 15 million, and Jean told him to wipe that smile off his face. He said that this gem was a 10th grade Amelpha and the other was in a grade Fafa, and he seriously wanted to say that these two stones were worth hardly more than 10 million. He said that he was a scammer and said that he had a network of contacts with traders. Jean said that the merchant Liberto and began to threaten. Then the merchant offered him 20 million. Jean shouted that he knew the price of these stones very well and that he could not deceive Liberto if he did not understand yet. The merchant, apologizing and crying, said that he would give 30, but he himself did not have any more money. A little later, the hero thought that this was incredible. He thought that 1.2 would be fine, but Jean tripled the price. The man asked the boys what they would do with that kind of money. Yuta said they would buy fur, and Jean asked what kind of fur they wanted. Yudo said that they needed a mecha that could be controlled by a person with a Rudia value of 10,000 or more. Jean was surprised to realize that Yuta was a Highlander, but Falma said that it was not for a guy. Jean said that overall it wasn't that important and he didn't care, but if they were talking about new furs, he would surprise them. Yudo was actually shocked enough to scream across the street when he heard the price of 100 million gold. The man cleared his ears and said that even if it was cheap, Highlander fur was a very expensive item. The guy was in despair, realizing that they would not have enough, but Jean said that they had another way. A huge coliseum appeared before them. The heroes found themselves in a huge gladiator arena. Highlanders were rare among gladiators, so he hoped his instincts were correct. At this time, two mechs were already fighting in the arena. The hero asked how he could get into the Colosseum, and the man chuckled and said that he would take care of it. Nanami worriedly said that these men looked strong and asked if the guy could handle it. Jean was surprised to realize that Yudo would be the one fighting and asked what his value was. Yudo answered with a smile that his value was 2, but said not to worry. Jin, hearing his words, froze in shock looking at the hero. He cried out asking what he just said and asked if it would be better to let that young lady be the pilot. Yuto replied that he couldn't because he had no choice, he was the only one who could fly the mecha they had. Jin was surprised because he had never heard of a mecha behaving like that, and in general the hero wouldn't even turn on a magic lamp at level 2. Yuta said that to be honest, their mecha was weird and maybe it was like that by default. At that time, the arena announced the second fight saying that it was a fight they wouldn't want to miss. A pilot who had won many battles in a row, Shinsuke, entered the arena. Yamakura, the hero, shuddered when he heard the name. He was sure they were in the same class. His opponent was Altadona, who had over 500 victories to his credit. The man called the boy a youngster and said that he would show him that gladiators do not rely only on the level of the Ludia. The hero recalled that Yamakura was a quiet guy, but he did not communicate with him often. The young guy exploded from such treatment and called his opponent an old idiot, saying that he would regret not giving up right away. The hero, hearing this, decided that he was wrong. The mechs began to fight, and the old man managed to escape the attack. The man, avoiding the blows, shouted that it wouldn't work, starting to anger the young guy even more. With the help of his third hand, he blocked blows and said that this hand could withstand a blow from the strongest mech. He grabbed Yamakura's mecha, saying that he would be crushed to death without any chance to prove himself in battle. The schoolboy grinned, insulting the old man in return, and said that with such cheap tricks he would not defeat him. The old man told him not to lie, because for such a thing he would make him regret it. Suddenly the sound of breaking parts was heard, and the man froze in shock. Yamakura countered with words, saying that he could still defeat him. The old man's fur was crushed in an instant. The host announced that they had a champion, Shinsuke Yamakura. The hero realized that it was actually him, his classmate Yamakura, but he was like a different person. The quiet guy he used to be was gone. Jin, standing next to him, asked Yudo if he understood what Jin was talking about. The man said that fighting in the Colosseum was like putting your life on the line, and it would be better to think of something else. The hero understood everything. But smiling, he said that if that's what was needed, he would beat him. Jin doubted and thought about it. The man grinned and replied that they would then find him his first opponent and asked who the hero would like, someone who was sure to have money, and of course asked to leave it to him. After a while at the bar, someone was drinking straight from the bottle. The tattooed man asked if they really dared to choose his master Kevin the Red Dragon as their first fight. He apologized and said he would not fight this kid. Jin chuckled and said he was sorry because he had planned to bet 20 million and asked if he still wanted to take the challenge. The man, after thinking about it, finally agreed, but told them not to cry later. Jin said it was mutual. And so his first fight as a gladiator was decided. Apparently, his duel would be the first fight after lunch. The employee rolled the hero's fur out in front of him. Another employee stopped him, saying that the name of the mecha Yudo was left blank, and the hero said that it was because she didn't have a name. The girl replied that even if it was so, it was still a problem. She needed a name for registration, so he needed to decide now what to call her. Even though she said to decide now, it was difficult. The hero remembered an anime in his head that he liked before, in which a white lion fought, and he tried to remember its name. Having remembered the name, the hero asked the employee to register his fur under the name Arleo. The opponent's mech entered the arena, and the announcer announced that the next fight had begun, which would be the debut of the gladiator Yut and his mech Arleo. Someone called out to Yudo. Jin advised the hero if he could pretend to win at the last minute, but the hero did not understand why. Then the man explained that if he won by a hair, it would affect the bets on the next match. The host announced that his opponent was a mid-ranking gladiator with 50 wins to his credit, the Red Dragon Kevin with his fur Olga. The hero, seeing that the bets on Kevin were 57 times higher, realized that he was in big trouble. The host announced the start of the battle. Kevin immediately attacked and was surprised when the hero dodged the blow without any problems. The hero observed that the enemy was open from the top, center, and bottom, and he could have responded with an attack. But Jin told him to pretend that it was difficult for him and he had no choice but to just hit him, and that's it. Which is what he did. But the blow was too strong and blew apart the enemy's fur. The spectators watched what was happening in silence. Suddenly the stands screamed in shock. Jin thought in shock that this was more than he expected. The hero was surprised that he had managed and did not know what Jin would tell him now. The enemy's armor was broken and smoke was coming out of it. Kevin, groaning, said that he had lost his vigilance. After stretching his neck, the man said that the hero thought he had the strength, but the real fight was only beginning now. The hero silently prayed to Kevin to hold on because he could still fight. The man shouted at the hero to receive his super attack. The hero didn't know this move and realized that he would have to simply take the hit by blocking it with his hands. And then the man hit him right in the hands. Both were tense until the man was surprised by what he saw. From the blow to the hero's fur, his own fur began to break into pieces, while the man screamed that it was impossible. The red dragon's mecha fell and the announcer announced that the battle was over with Yuta and Arleo winning. The hero screamed, realizing that he had screwed up. As he was getting down from the fur, his friends were already waiting for him below and Jean looked displeased. The man shouted, reminding him that he had told him to be on the line, and the hero, apologizing, said that he didn't think he could do it that way, but because of this, it would now be harder for them to find an opponent. The girls told Yudo to see how much money they got. They left 100,000 gold for them to live on, and all the rest of their money from the jewelry was bet on him. The guy was shocked. It turned out that absolutely everyone bet on Yudo from their company. Later at the cafe, Yudo was cursing, wondering what to do. No one wanted to fight him anymore. The girls criticized, saying that last time it was too one-sided, but they were interested in watching. Yudo told Jean to stop drinking and asked if he had any ideas, and he replied that there was no choice, and he believed that in such a matter they needed a plan. At that moment, Yudo was called out to say that this could not be. In front of him were Yamakura, Hiranishi, and Shibai. The hero happily said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and asked the guys how they were doing. Hiranishi grimaced, saying that just because they were classmates, it didn't give Yuta the right to call them by their first names. Yuta was shocked. Hiranishi said that there is a huge gap between people like the hero and people like the horses. The hero did not understand what he was talking about, and Hiranishi insulted the hero and forbade him to address him as you. Hiranishi said that he was an elite with a level of 3,300 and he was a non-entity with a level of 2. The boys began to argue with each other and the two friends became enemies. Nanami listened silently. Unable to bear it, the girl said to stop being rude to Yuta. They know each other, so why are they saying such horrible things? Hiranishi asked her again with an angry face full of disgust. He laughed, asking the hero what was wrong with him. Did he really become a servant nurse for children? He saw Falma and asked what they had here. Why was she wearing a hood and did she not think it was rude in the presence of the elite? He grabbed her by the hood, and the girl said to let go when he told her to show her face. He tore off her hood and everyone around was horrified, calling her a monster and saying that half-beast was still a beast. The hero, enraged, intervened, hitting his former friend. Holding the place where he hit, Hiranishi asked what he just did, and the hero replied that he didn't care how high his weapon was. He was just a nobody who liked hurting people he didn't like, and he himself was no better than him. Jean loudly put the bottle on the table and called Hiranishi, saying that he didn't know what kind of relationship they had, but they were all gladiators. In that case, he suggested that they settle things in the Colosseum. The hero called out to Jean in surprise, and Hiramishi asked who would fight a nobody like Yudo. The hero didn't understand what he was planning, but Jean reminded him that the hero himself said that they needed a plan, so he should watch it in action. Jean proposed a fight with melee weapons only, 1 versus 3, 40 million gold bet, and he offers a big advantage. Hiramishi repeated his terms and asked if he understood that he was throwing money into the void. Jean said he understood, but if they refused, it meant they were truly afraid of Yuta. Hiramishi snorted and nevertheless agreed, accepting the conditions. The next day, the host announced that today was the special fight of the day, where the new Saw, who had already shown exceptional power in his first fight, would fight against 3 gladiators in a melee fight. Falma asked the man if that was a weapon in Arleo's hands, and the man said yes, because fighting a 3-on-1 fight with bare fists would be too hard. The host announced that this was a battle against gladiators who had won 10 fights in a row: Shinsuke Yamakura, Yuji Zaranishi, and Yasuke Shibai, and their mechs Ranza, Edel, and Mishu. Jean shouted to Yudo that these tonfa were specially made of magnetite, and he could not be afraid and hit with all his might. Falma asked him to be careful. The announcer announced the start of the fight. Yamakura smirked, calling the hero names. Hiramishi said he was sure the hero's first fight was just a lie, and Shibai promised to show him how stupid his fight was, calling Yudo a deuce. The first one, having insulted the hero, attacked with his weapon, shouting for him to die already. Suddenly, after the impact, his weapon began to crack and break. Yuda used his weapon to strike at him. The opponent's mech's body began to crack, and he shouted insults at Yuda. He continued to attack, but Yudo deftly dodged and parried the blows, making the enemy not understand what was happening. Hiramishi panicked and said that it was impossible that something like this could be done with gun 2, and didn't understand what Yudo had done. Being scared, he said that the hero had deceived them and asked them to stop, because if they lost, their kingdom would end. Yudo replied that he didn't care, because they themselves were to blame for everything. He dealt the final blow to Hiramishi's mecha. The host announced that he had defeated the Ute and Arleo. but the hero was not happy with the victory. The Haranishi and the others changed after coming to this world. The Ludia level became a new tool for them to evaluate the individual value of each person. The hero wondered if the same thing had happened to everyone in the class. He climbed out of Arleo where his friends were already waiting for him below. At least he promised himself that he would not end up like them. The girl sitting at the control panel of the mech counts the opponents. There was one on the right and two on the left. Exhaling, she concentrated and realized that it was a trap and someone was behind her. She was able to repel the unexpected attack, causing the enemy to be surprised that she dodged it. The other mech's leg was instantly broken. The girl jumped up, flying up, and found herself behind her opponents. The girl was advised to calm down and watch where she was landing. She struck at the enemies. The two in front of her fell back in defeat. Yui's radio said that this was enough. Yudo said that this was an impressive feat even for a training fight, and the man next to him was also amazed at how strong she had become in just a month. The girl said that she had done nothing and that this was all Kauto's training. The guy said that it was not so, and all thanks to the girl's innate talent. He did not expect that she would grow up so quickly. Then the man said that next time Kauto could train with her, and he immediately agreed, asking her if she would like to join the vanguard of Simria. Yui asked the man what about her request. He, realizing that she was talking about the guy from the auction, said that they found the merchant who took him and began negotiations to take him back. But the guy himself seemed to have escaped a few days ago. That merchant wanted to hide it from them and make a deal, so they punished him for his insolence and made sure he never did it again. The girl became sad and the man said that she shouldn't worry, their intelligence was working on this with the highest priority, and he was sure that they would have good news in a couple of days. The girl really asked for help because she was worried about Yudo. He promised that they would do everything to find him. At this time, in another place, entering the luxurious hall, Nanami was surprised that everything around was brilliant. Falma said that it was not like any hotel that they had been to before, or rather in this place, even better than at home. While the girls were jumping on the bed, Jean said that it was time to move on, for the hero would no longer be able to raise money as a gladiator. After 3 acquaintances of Yudo, they have more money, but he is too strong and no one wants to fight him. The hero did not understand what to do now. There was a cracking sound, and both turned around to look at the broken bed with the girls. Jean said that after all he made 200 million, so why not just buy a mech? The hero replied that if possible he wanted to buy 2 mechs and a carrier, and asked if they could do it for that amount. Jean asked if he needed 1 regular mech and 1 for the Highlander. The hero explained that they needed a mecha that could be launched by a pilot with a value of 7,800. Jean realized that they needed a half-lander and said that because they were in demand, the price was quite high and 200 million was definitely not enough for him. The hero asked if they really couldn't have another fight. The man said that there is one option, only one person will agree to fight him now. The hero said that he doesn't care who it will be until Jean said that he doesn't advise it, because he is talking about an undefeated fighter in 120 fights. This is the strongest gladiator in the whole world with a rudiment level of 23,000, no matter how strong Yudo is. This opponent is beyond his strength. The hero decided to fight him anyway, and it would be his last fight. Jean cried out, asking if he was sure since he was dealing with almost a triple Highlander. The hero said it didn't matter because he would win. Jean did not understand where such confidence came from and replied that he would not stop him. He was interested in how much the hero wanted to leave, and he replied that all 200 million. Hearing this, Jean decided that maybe he really was stupid. Later that evening, Nanami called Yudo saying that once they avenged Falma's father, she suggested that they go somewhere in the wilderness, just the 3 of them, and Falma wanted that. The hero replied that it was a good idea. Nanam asked if he would fight again, and he replied that he would. She asked him not to get hurt. He thought that even if they thought he was frivolous, he couldn't let them worry about him. All he could do was pretend to be confident. He promised the girl that everything would be fine. The next day, a girl was sitting in front of him saying that she couldn't believe that he would ask her to have sex with him. She was wondering what kind of fool he was, but instead she found out that he was a cute little boy. This was unexpected. The guy was shocked because he was not expecting a girl but a pumped-up scary man. The girl asked him what the conditions of the fight were. Jean replied that the stake was 200 million, but she didn't care about the money, she couldn't drink it, so she asked if he could add another condition. She said that the loser will belong to the winner. Jean shouted, telling her not to be stupid, they can't accept such conditions. The girl playfully said that she was scared, but then there would be no battle. But the hero unexpectedly agreed to this condition. She smirked, saying that he was not only cute but also brave, and she liked him like that. Jean shouted at Yuto that if he lost he would become her servant, and he couldn't agree to these horrible conditions. But Yuta said that everything was fine and he would definitely win. Jean did not understand where this confidence came from, and the girl said that then everything was decided. She, calling him a baby, introduced herself as Aluna. Yudo, saying that he was not a child, introduced himself in response. She could not wait for him to become hers and said that she was glad to meet him. The guy nervously replied that it was mutual. There was a crowd of people in the city, all whispering, discussing a special fight that was complete madness. Just looking at the bets, some didn't even want to go and watch it. The hero was surprised by how many people came to watch, and Jean said that he heard that the bets on this fight were unprecedented. The hero asked if no one was betting on him, and Jean said that he was betting on him. Nanami said that she and Falma also bet on him. The hero, smiling, said that it meant that only the three of them would profit, and now he had to win. The host announced that today would be the hottest fight of the year, where the strongest gladiator Aluna returned to the Colosseum. She is so strong that no one has challenged her for a long time. The undisputed queen, who has been helping the leadership as an advisor until now, has finally received an opponent. He announced that on the other side was a fighter who had won a series of matches, the gladiator rookie Yuda. There was much discussion about how long he could defend himself against Aluna's onslaught. Aluna called the hero a baby and asked if he was ready, and he repeated that he was not a baby and his name was Yudo. Rushing from her place, she shouted that Yudo was right. Their mechs collided and the boy was shocked at how fast she was. Aluna continued to press forward, but he managed to fight back. The girl mockingly asked if something was wrong and if he wasn't going to attack her. The guy thought that it was the best he could do and answered that if he could, he would do it with pleasure. Aluna began to attack again. The hero was able to protect himself with the help of a piece of floor. But this did not stop the girl and she rushed towards him again, but the hero managed to hit her. The girl said that it was not bad. He was the first one who was able to damage her fur. Yuto replied that he would not stop and would be the first to win. The girl, smiling, called it funny and said to try if he could. Aluna said threateningly that she was just warming up and the hero shuddered. Suddenly, her fur seemed to evaporate. The hero noticed with horror that she was missing. Jean was also shocked. She found herself in front of the hero's fur. Aluna hit him, but the hero still didn't understand what it was. The hero's mech's shoulder was torn and smoke was coming out of it. The spectators in the stands are noisy, eager for the fight to continue. The opponents exchange glances. They both underestimated each other's strength. Nanami and Falma are worried about the main character. They notice that Aruna is not so simple. The girl has somehow accelerated. Jean confirms the girl's guess. It's all about the weapon and concentration. It seems that Aruna knows a way to temporarily increase the potential of the Ludia. Looking at his opponent, Yuta also guesses this almost immediately. Aruna only mocks the protagonist. He doesn't even know how to concentrate energy but still dared to challenge her to a fight. Determined to win, the girl suggests ending it. The enemy strikes blow after blow and Yuta is seriously scared. He is not sure that he can withstand another blow. Aruna prepares for another attack. The protagonist feels trapped. Yuta tries to pull himself together and looks at his options. He even thinks about sacrificing his arm but quickly dismisses the idea. The young man thinks that increasing the value of the Ludia could help him, but how exactly can he do that? The hero immerses himself in memories from his childhood when he and his friend went to Aikido. The girl then hurried him and got angry, reminding him that her father did not like being late. Yuta was indignant when they were forced to meditate instead of training. Besides, he had never done meditation before. The man began to calmly explain the basics to the boy and then suggested that he try it. After listening to the teacher, the children make their first attempt to find concentration. Yuta clearly remembers peace of mind as the key to strength. Returning to the present, the hero remembers the coach's instructions and manages to withstand the crushing blow of his opponent. Aruna is confused. The girl does not understand how the newcomer was able to stand. The body of the double Highlander would have shattered into pieces. She also notices a strange aura around the enemy. Aruna can't believe it was Yuta. After a moment's hesitation, she rushes into battle with determination. The girl is confident of her future victory. Meanwhile, the protagonist reaches the peak of concentration. The accumulated energy glows and sparkles in his eyes like a flame. The enemy makes a dash, and the main character delivers the decisive blow, putting all his strength and inner power into it. Realizing her defeat, Aruna says that Yuta is truly a fool, and yet she has accepted her defeat. Finally, the herald announces the winner and the protagonist hears his name. Yuta exhales tiredly. This fight was the most difficult for him. The company celebrates the victory and the accumulation of the required amount. They raise a toast to Yuta. Aruna acts as if she had not lost recently and feeds the hero with a fork. The young man is surprised by the behavior of his recent opponent, who not only came to the celebration in honor of his victory, but also treats him so nicely. Aruna does not understand his complaints. The girl explains that she really likes the hero. Besides, she wanted to quit fighting anyway. There are no worthy opponents and fighting is unprofitable. Yuta admits to himself that he is pleased with Aruna's sympathy. Jean, stuffing his mouth with food, notes that they will still need their new comrade. The protagonist is indignant. He thought that their common affairs were over. In response to this, the guy makes a sad face. He thought that they were friends. Taking on a serious expression, Jean asks Yuta to look at the situation from another perspective. He was able to defeat a man with 20,000 rudia. Doesn't that mean it's time to take action? The protagonist says that he is not interested in money. When Jean asks what he wants then, Yuta answers confidently to defeat the Rudavan. Hearing this, the guys bombard him with questions. Is he a spy from another country? Is he an instrument in political games? Yuta asked, don't soldiers do the same thing every day? Thinking about it, he noticed that it all seemed useless to him. In addition, the hero is afraid of endangering Nanami and Falma. The girls protested, if Yuta is fighting, then they will fight too. In response, the young man said that war is no joke. Jean, meanwhile, suggests that the protagonist must gain strength. Otherwise, what will he present? Yuta admits that he is right. Stopping near the luxurious transport mech, Yuta asked if it belonged to Aruna. She answered without hesitation that it was his. She belonged to him and therefore the mech too. The young man was embarrassed. After all, the mechanism was expensive. Aruna said that she was stuck here and the fur was just rotting in the barn because it was no longer needed. Maybe the protagonist will change everything. Then, the girl noted that she would like to show something else. Aruna introduces the blonde girl Lisa as the best mechanic in the area. It was Lisa who repaired her mech after the battle. Yuta extends his hand to introduce himself, but Lisa immediately pushes it away. The hero feels a gaze on himself that does not bode well. Lisa says that she hates Yuta and demands that he not dare to hurt Aruna. The young man raises his hands, trying to explain that he had no intention of hurting her. Aruna herself tells her friend that the boy won a fair fight. But Lisa is adamant. She continues to press, demanding that her friend be released immediately. Aruna tries to convey to her that their mission is important, and if Lisa doesn't like something, then she should go about her business. In the midst of the argument, Jean comes and asks if Aruna invited him. The girl confirms that she did. She says that Yuta will go with him. At the first shop, Nanami suddenly notes that she has 32,000 rudia, and Falma says that she has 7,800. Aruna and Jean were clearly not prepared for such information. The giant furs are displayed in huge display cases, and Falma's eyes are literally starry. The girl is happy to finally see them in real life and not just on the pages of books. The salesman appears and in between telling her about the best-selling items, asks Aruna who she is looking at the mech for. The girl says that their team will need one that requires more than 30,000 rudia. Having recovered from the shock, the salesman leads them to the appropriate mechs. The man introduces them to the Golden Vajra mech, listing its specifications. Rated for 30,000 rudia, maximum power of 3,200,000, SS rank armor, S rank agility, and the most flawless engine. Falma admires the golden color of the fur and Aruna its power. The seller says something else about the power of the Vajra and how he wanted to sell it to Elijah but does not have time to finish the sentence. Yuta invites Nanami to try out the new fur. The girl remembers how her father said that gold is the color of happiness, so she is happy. The heroes decide to take Vajra. Suddenly, Jean flies in and stops them. The guy asks the seller how much he wants for this fur. Smiling slyly, he says 500 million, but for Aruna, he will make a discount to 400 million. With burning eyes, Jean calls this a hedgehog. Some time passes and the heroes agree on 250 million. Impressed by Jean's talents in trade, the seller asks if he really doesn't want to work for them. The guy refuses. He wants to be with the guys. It was time to find a mech for Falma. Next, the team was introduced to Garuda. 6,200 rudium, maximum power 100,000, armor rank C, agility rank A. Garuda is a very unusual mech. He can fly. Hearing this, Falma froze in place, unable to move. The idea of flying fascinated her. The seller noted that it would take time to learn how to operate the fur. When asked about the price, he replied that he did not want to resort to discounts again, so he would take 100 million. Falma continues to watch as if enchanted. The girl firmly decided that she wanted a winged fur. Jean's voice was heard from the side again. He asked to discuss something. The guy said that if the guys liked everything, then let them take the cars right away. But he would still ask them for advice. Then Jean hinted that there were weapons from Utah. Now it was time to test drive the new mechs. Yuta called out to the girls if everything was okay. A happy Nanami replied that everything was awesome. The hero continues to instruct the newcomers, asking them not to overexert themselves and to go slowly. Aruna noted that although they were good girls, the beginning could be difficult. Yuta responded that they both always liked mechs. Suddenly, Falma turns to the hero with a question on how to make her new mech fly. He begins to dissuade her, claiming that first you need to get used to the controls. The girl doesn't listen to him. She quickly finds a way to spread the fur's wings. The propellers make noise, raising powerful air currents. Finally, Falma and Garuda rise into the air. The wind from the huge wings almost blows away Yuta and Aruna. The hero is amazed that this mech can actually fly. Falma is no less enchanted. She feels like a real dragon. Returning, the heroes greeted Jean. He noted that it had gone even more cheerfully. Jean said that he was surprised at how much of a role the gun played. Aruna asked the crew where they were going next. After some thought, Jean said that they were going to the Republic of Kirks. As an Earthling, Yuta didn't understand what they were talking about. Aruna explained that Kirks is a state that is currently at war with the Kyrakia Empire. Right now, it is possible to declare oneself as an excellent fighter there. Jean added that Kirks is full of gold mines. Yuta listened to them thoughtfully. Jean noted that there were other countries in the world that had more favorable resources for the needs of the world. Then the guy said that before they started fighting, they needed to decide on one more important thing. Yuta didn't understand what he was talking about. Jean indignantly noted that Yuta was an idiot. How could he not know the very basics of business? After all, they hadn't decided what their team would be called yet. The team prepares to conduct a training battle. The huge mechs stand opposite each other, waiting for the signal, and Aruna concentrates in anticipation of the upcoming fight. Jean asked if the participants were ready. Finally, he shouted the start of the fight. Aruna enthusiastically declared that her mech would be a piece of cake and rushed forward, challenging her opponents. Yuta looks at Falma in surprise, who now not only flies but also confidently attacks from a distance. Even he himself can't do that. The girl only teases him with a smile. Aruna, who has met Nanami in a duel, admits that she did not expect anything else from 30,000 Ludia. The girl is unusually strong. Nanami is happy with the praise, proudly putting her massive shield forward. Standing aside, Jean and Lisa watch the training fight as if it were a real movie. They find the spectacle quite impressive and even exciting. Having settled down comfortably in the clearing, the team decided to rest. Falma noted that she had seen a beautiful lake on the way here, and it was very close. Yuta became interested. As soon as she heard about the lake, Nanami immediately started asking to go there. She really liked the idea of playing in the cool water. Yuta asked them not to rush because they didn't even have swimsuits. Stretching carefree, Aruna said that she could give them her old swimsuits. The girl added that the rest was really necessary, and anyway, she had to help Yuta. The lake turned out to be larger than the boys expected, and most likely it was quite deep. Thinking about this, the hero asked Falma if she could swim. Aruna asked Yuta if he would be swimming himself. But before the young man could answer, he felt Lisa's threatening presence behind him, as if to say, "Don't even think about staring at her otherwise." Yuta decided that he would not be swimming. The hero wanted to go fishing. Jean, loaded with fishing gear, asked Yuta if he knew anything about fishing. He answered hesitantly that he knew a little. The appearance of the fishing rod that Jean got surprised Yuta. To this, his friend told him that the culture of Earth with its technologies had greatly influenced this world. Earthlings had passed on a lot to them. Having settled down on the shore more comfortably, the hero began to fish. Sitting there for a while, Yuta finally felt something bite. He quickly came to life and stood up to pull the catch out of the water, not holding back his excitement. At the sight of the fish thrashing on the hook, Yuta's eyes lit up with puppy joy. The young man came to the conclusion that fishing was not so difficult. But the appearance of Jean with baskets full of fish immediately dissuaded Yuta from the truth of his conclusions. Evening comes and the team sits around the fire to fry fish. Jean asks if the guys have had a chance to rest a little. He hopes that in the future they will be able to meet as often as possible. Suddenly, Yuta reminds them that they need to work on the rockets in the mechs. Aruna says that Falma already has excellent arrows, but they could diversify their arsenal with magic bullets. Yuta asked again with interest. Aruna told her idea. Mechs that require more than 20,000 rudium could be equipped with so many guns that the enemy would shit his pants just from the sight of them. Falma added that the magic bullets are quite compact, so they won't take up too much space. The rate of fire of these bullets is low, but everything has its pros and cons. After thinking about it, Yuta decided that it was better with magic bullets than without them. In the luxurious building of the Kirk's Republic Ministry of Internal Affairs, an elderly general thanks everyone present for deciding to help the country in this difficult time. He would like to take all the mercenaries who arrived, but due to the war, the budget is limited. Therefore, to ensure that Kirks could hire them all, the decision was made to pay the mercenaries based on their combat performance. The silence was broken by a bearded mercenary. He has nothing against it, but what results in payment are we talking about? The assistant girl answered that for each destroyed mech they pay 5 million, and for every 10 destroyed mechs there will be a bonus of 10 million. Jean intervened in the conversation. The pay was fine with him, but he would like an additional bonus for the mercenaries who showed the best results. The general thought for a moment but agreed. In that case, the group with the best result would receive an additional 100 million. Having finished, the man suggested continuing the conversation on his floor. Meanwhile, someone called out to Yuta. The enraged girl said that she and her team, unlike the hero, were risking their lives here. If they lost, they would simply be killed, so she would not lend Yuta a helping hand. Before the young man could recover from the words of Imamura's former classmate, Horaibe appeared. He apologized for his friend, but noted that he would not help Yuta either, calling his participation in the case a scam. Nanami called out to the main character, saying that Jean was calling him, but Yuta himself stood there, not knowing how to react to the behavior of his former classmates. Where did all this anger come from? After moving away a bit, he decided to ask Horaibe and Imamura about mercenary work. Ignoring the question, his classmate asked how Yuta managed to escape. He thought he had already been sold into service. The hero replied that it was a long story. Yuta changed the subject. He mentioned that they might end up serving on the same battlefield, and if that happened, he offered to take care of him. Horaibe asked Yuta, puzzled, how he could be a mercenary if he couldn't even start a mech with 2 guns. His former classmate could barely hide his contempt. Imamura didn't even try to hide her hatred. Jean laid out a map and announced the first war meeting of the team. Their task will be to retake the fortress of Ruba. This is a joint operation in which the other mercenary teams will also participate. Yuta hesitated. Retaking the fort was too big a mission to begin with. Jean agreed with the hero, but noted that in this case they would be joining Kirk's regular army. On the Kyrakia side are about 100 mechs, 150 ballistas, and a trump card called the Black Highlander. On their side are 83 mechs. In a siege, the difference in numbers can be compensated for by impeccable strategy. After some thought, Jean said that 4 of their team could turn the tide of battle in their favor. The only problem is that the rest of the mercenaries will get in the way. In any case, Jean hopes that the final strategy will be wise. The next day at a meeting, the bearded mercenary remarked that his team, the Beast King mercenaries, would not fight alongside some Iron Knights. Jean looked at the bearded man with disdain. The Beast King mercenary commander continued, saying that he couldn't trust his flank to these suspicious people. Besides, he had heard from a comrade that there were swindlers among them. After listening to the mercenary, the general asked those present if anyone wanted to fight alongside the Iron Knights. If none were found, they would send the Iron Knights to the west alone. Yuta wearily agreed. Jean could barely restrain himself from cursing and asked his friend to keep quiet. The team arrived at their destination. Surrounded by a thick fortification wall, the Ruba fortress was truly enormous. It could withstand a long siege. Jean began to explain the strategy and said that he had installed a spirit box in the control cabin, which was provided by Kirk's army along with a beacon and recording device. Separately, the guys spoke about the importance of information warfare. Jean would like the team to report to him about the situation as often as possible. Yuta said he noticed some new devices attached to his mech's arms. Aruna confirmed that she had asked Lisa to install firearms as the hero wanted. The girl briefly explained how to use the new weapon, and she also reminded that the magic bullets are not very powerful, so they are best suited for distracting the enemy. The operation is about to begin. The heroes are nervous. Yuta asks if everyone is ready. Finally, the time is up. Aruna gives orders. Falma should gain altitude and prepare to open fire, Yuta should attract attention opposite, and she and Nanami should outflank the enemies and destroy them. The team heads into battle. The enemies at the gate notice them almost immediately and begin to take counteraction. Yuta distracted the enemy mechs that had attacked him in droves. The girls began to attack from the flank. Aruna struck quickly and deadly, and Nanami pressed the enemies, throwing them back with powerful sweeping blows. Falma, on her maneuverable Garuda, showered enemy troops with arrows from the air. The battlefield was littered with fallen enemy mechs. The team had already killed dozens, if not hundreds, of enemies, but something was wrong here. Aruna noticed that the number of enemies didn't seem to be decreasing. Yuta confirmed her fears. If their calculations were correct, they only had to deal with 33 mechs, but there were over 100 of them here. The girl suggested finishing here quickly and helping the others. Falma did a great job, destroying one ballista after another from the air. She was practically elusive to enemy mechs. Yuta watched her, still admiring Garuda's arrows. Suddenly, he noticed that one of the remaining ballistas was aiming directly at Falma. At first, he shouted to warn his friend, but then decided to act. The hero remembered the magic bullets hidden in his arsenal. He just needed to distract the enemy. Alio's hand glowed with accumulated energy and fired a projectile of monstrous power. This was not the action Yuta had expected. Aruna watched in fascination. She had never seen such power in magic bullets before. The main character's shot didn't just destroy the ballista. It blew away half the fortress wall with a powerful explosion. Jean tries to contact the team via the device. The guy reports with concern that the allies on the southern side are already exhausted, and he does not want to admit it, but they should retreat. Yuta agreed. He added that it would be easier if they could shoot magic bullets from afar, but they can't shoot everywhere. The hero said that he would go there alone. The captain of the Beast King mercenaries is puzzled. There are over 100 mechs on the southern side alone. His men beg him to retreat, but no, they are already surrounded. The man admits that they need reinforcements, but where can they get strong enough ones? The captain turns to Horaibe and Imamura. They are half Highlanders, so let them do something. The fighters respond that they cannot help, no matter how much they want to, because the enemy in front of them is too serious. The two of them try to hold back the black mech, but he is too strong. Suddenly, the black mech lunges towards Imamura. Noticing this, Horaibe screams out his comrade's name in horror. Imamura closes her eyes, already deciding that this is her end, but nothing happens. The girl opens her eyes and sees that someone has entered into a fight with the black moss. The ally easily knocked out the enemy mech's decorative teeth and then slammed its metal head into the ground. A pile of scrap metal remained of the formidable enemy. Horaibe couldn't believe his eyes. The one they were barely holding together was defeated by the white mech in a matter of moments. Yuta gave the order to his remaining allies. Everyone break up the formation from the outside. Meanwhile, Jean thought about the situation with boredom. Wow, they're at war. Yuta and the others are so strong they can do anything. But Jean suspects that there will only be more problems from now on. One by one, the friends report on the situation on the ground. Yuta says that now we need to continue covering the southern part. It seems that things are going well. Suddenly, the commander of the Beast King mercenaries appears. The man, without embarrassment, says that the Iron Knights should not steal someone else's loot. After all, it is one integral system. Yuta doesn't understand this attack and tries to object. Aruna stops him, saying that she doesn't have time to deal with some idiots. The Iron Knights' first battle ended in impressive success. But another meeting of mercenaries. The general says that he was shown a protocol on the defeat of the unrivaled Knights Favonius, if of course this is not a fake protocol. The assistant explains that, judging by the words of the other mercenaries, the Iron Knights are taking credit for someone else's victory. Yuta doesn't understand what they're talking about. Someone in the room grins maliciously and Jean notices. The general and assistant find the Iron Knights' numbers unrealistic. Why were there 152 kills if the team only had 4 unrivaled units? Jean explains that they did it with those 4 powerful mechs. To this, the general and assistant say that they have already received reports of how the fort was captured by the mercenaries of the Beast King. Jean explodes, claiming that those same mercenaries have lost all their will and have not really done anything. The captain of the Beast King's mercenaries continues to turn the general against Jean and his team, to which the man asks not to disturb the peace. Besides, they still need to discuss the next operation. At the border of the Kyrakia Empire, Yui and her comrade discuss the battle that just took place. Her friend says that Yui has become incredibly good and she can hardly compete with her now. The girl is embarrassed. But Emina continues, reminding that Yui killed the trump card this time. A man approaches the girls and also notes their military merits. Yui thanks him and then asks what happened. As it turns out, the enemy army has taken another step to invade the Empire's territory. The violators must be destroyed. Meanwhile, at a meeting of mercenaries in Kirks, they discuss the battalion that invaded Kyrakia, which was destroyed by someone in a few minutes. The general decided that this time they would carry out a large-scale extermination operation with 91 mercenaries, 150 soldiers, 250 ships, and their invincible Eisen. Ritter. Turning to Jean, the general asked him to do without deception this time. When asked who was spreading these rumors, the man pointed to the captain of the Beast King mercenaries. Jean does not understand why the general trusts so selectively. To this, the captain of the Beast King's mercenaries states that he and the general have known each other for a long time. Isn't it obvious who to trust here? Jean looks at this picture with disdain. Now everything is clear to him. Operation about to begin. Yuta reports that he is on site. The device tells him that the enemy has received strong reinforcements, so all teams should be careful. The protagonist advances towards his opponents. Armed with a double-ended spear, he literally cuts the mechs in half. Yuta was again surprised by the power of the weapon. How could it cut the metal so badly? Aruna assumed that it was the influence of the weapon. Meanwhile, the captain of the Beast King mercenaries is receiving more and more fearful messages from his men. The soldiers say that they can't hold out any longer. The fear is beginning to spread to the captain. Trying to pull himself together, the man asks for a situation report. In an attempt to reach the fighters, he notices the danger too late. Horror finally paralyses him. Yuta didn't recognize the captain's voice from the device. Usually calm, it was now filled with fear and panic. The hero quickly found out from Jean where the mercenaries of the Beast King were fighting in order to head towards them. While trying to find them on the map, Jean found out that all of the Beast King's mercenaries had been destroyed. Without hesitation, Yuta went to the place where the mercenaries died. Aruna and the others went with him. The words about strong reinforcements kept spinning in the hero's head, giving him a bad feeling in his heart. Soon as Yuta approached the right place, he was greeted by an explosion and collapsed walls. The culprit of the explosion did not keep us waiting. A monstrous black mech resembling a dragon was already dealing with another victim. The black and white fur noticed each other almost simultaneously. Yui and Emina are sitting at a tea table. The man in uniform notes that the girls are truly an invincible duo. But he called them because the intelligence officers had received important strategic information. Kirk's army is strong and they have some Beast King mercenaries on their side. The front line is retreating. They are expected to encounter these mercenaries in their next combat operation. They must be extremely careful. Yui puts on her favorite hairpin and goes out to Emina, apologizing for the wait. Her friend says that there is still some time before the sortie. Then, she notes that Yui is almost always in a military uniform. The girl thinks about how much time has passed since her arrival in this world. Emina breaks her out of her thoughts. She tells her about a good shop in the capital and suggests going there together after the operation. Yui looks at her friend and happily agrees to this proposal. The clashing black and white mechs try to gauge each other's strength levels. Yui has a strange, oppressive feeling, and Yuta is still terrified that the new enemy destroyed the Beast King mercenaries. Black mech is advancing. The protagonist tries to put emotions aside and focus on the weapon, keeping only the fight in mind. Yui made a sharp dash forward, intending to attack first. The girl in the cockpit acted confidently, as if instinctively. The black mech continued to advance, and Yuta continued to dodge. The clash of giant mechanisms hit everything around, causing city walls and columns to fall. The enemy was too fast. Concentration on the weapon does not help the hero. Suddenly, Yuta heard voices when his friends approached. The protagonist thanks the team for their timely arrival and asks to be on guard. Now they have to work together against a strong enemy. Someone's voice from above interrupts him. There's another mech on the roof of one of the buildings, an ally of their new enemy or another unknown threat. Emina apologizes to Yui for keeping her waiting. The girls reunite, ready to fight side by side. Aruna noticed that another group of some mechs was approaching them. As a result, the opponent's numerical advantage becomes noticeable. If these were mass-produced mechs, the team would have no problem finishing them off. But the problem is the flagships, which are already preparing to attack. When Aruna asks how the fight is going, Yuta admits that the new enemy is very strong. The girl tells the plan of action. Nanami attracts the enemies who have just arrived, and Falma covers her from the air. Yuta is tasked by Aruna to take on the black mech. It is likely controlled by a triple Highlander, so only the protagonist can compete with it. Emina warns Yui to be careful. It seems that their opponents are those same Beast King mercenaries, and they are going to use their numerical advantage to separate them. After listening to her friend's recommendations, Yui moved decisively towards the strange white mech. Fear was replaced by concentration. Suddenly, like a film reel, memories from her life in her home world start to scroll through the girl's head. A crying girl, a river. Her classmate Yuta was there too, all wet and dirty, painfully familiar and alien at the same time. Yui and Yuta face off, but both are overcome by a nostalgic feeling that confuses them. The fight continued, and in parallel with it, memories were scrolling through the opponents' heads. One day, returning from school, Yui saw a crying girl. She carefully asked her what happened. Choking with tears, she said that she dropped a brooch that her mother gave her in the river. The girl put her backpack and shoes on the bank and then carefully entered the river, starting to examine the bottom. Looking at Yui, the girl warned that this river could be dangerous. The girl asked the child not to worry because she was strong and not afraid. Suddenly, Yui hears a familiar voice and turns around to see her classmate Yuta. The young man comes closer and offers to help with the search. The real-time battle becomes increasingly violent as the white mech delivers a powerful counterattack that nearly knocks Yui off her feet, leaving her temporarily disoriented. The lost brooch is finally found. A shiny flower shines in Yuta's hand. Yui hears the heavy tread of white fur approaching step by step. The happy girl thanks her little sister and brother for their help. Yui and Yuta say goodbye to her, smiling warmly, and ask her to be careful on the way back. Tired, dirty, but satisfied with the work done, the boys settled down on the shore, enjoying the light breeze and the remaining sun. Yuta compared this adventure to a treasure hunt and noted that it was quite fun. He thanked Yui for her help. Remembering that story, Yui thinks that she should have been the one to thank the protagonist back then. Almost simultaneously, Yui and Yuta think that it was on that day that they fell in love with each other. The white mech struck again, metal meeting metal with a clang and the ground shaking from the impact. Yui's mech arm began to crumble, unable to withstand the crushing blow. Sweating and trying to catch his breath, Yuta doesn't understand why these memories came to him now in the middle of a fight. Then he remembers the rest of the team. He needs to find out how they're doing. Yuta turns to Aruna. The girl briefly replies that she is coping for now. Nanami is also doing well and Falma is helping her. Aruna adds that if the protagonist has already dealt with the enemy, then let him go and help Nanami. Yuta agrees. He leaves the defeated black mech alone, deciding that he is no longer dangerous. Yui sits in thought. She lost for the first time. But why, instead of disappointment, does she feel relief? Why did she have that strange feeling when she crossed swords with her opponent? Suddenly, Yui realizes that she can still move. She thinks about a surprise attack. Not the best choice, but it is her only chance. Suddenly, the girl hears Emina's voice. The danger threatening her friend becomes the main argument to overcome herself. Yui gathers her strength and rises, rushing to where Emina's voice was heard. Noticing this, Yuta began to worry. The enemy mech stood over Emina, already swinging its heavy hand to strike. Yui practically flew towards them, screaming her friend's name. Nanami noticed the black mech approaching and it seemed to be aiming at her. Yuta, who was terribly afraid for Nanami, hurried after his opponent. He acted recklessly. It was dangerous for Nanami to fight alone against several opponents. Emina thanked Yui, who had arrived in time. The girl herself told her friend that she would thank her when they returned to the capital. Emina is Yui's first and only friend in this world. She will not let her die on the battlefield. The friends begin to attack in a coordinated manner. Emina pushes Nanami back and takes her into a hold. Afterwards, she gives a signal to Yui. Watching this picture, Yuta understands where this is all heading. He also understands that he simply won't have time to intercept the black fur. The young man quickly goes over the options in his head. The hero decides to use a destructive magic bullet. His hand releases a huge flow of energy. The projectile flies right through, ripping off the black mech's arm along with his weapon. Worried about her friend, Emina is momentarily distracted and releases the enemy from his grip. The freed Nanami does not hesitate and deals a fatal blow to the enemy mech, piercing it through with her sword. Yui sits in a daze. She can't believe what happened. In tears, Yui starts screaming her friend's name, asking her to answer. Panic is getting stronger. Meanwhile, Nanami, taking the sword out of the enemy, asks how Yuta is. There are no more enemies in the area. As soon as she says this, an unknown mech drives up on a vehicle. He passes Nanami and heads towards the defeated Yui. Abruptly stopping next to the girl, the unknown man extends his hand to her. He asks her to be faster because there is little time. Crushed by bitterness, the girl continues to scream about Emina. She can't leave her like this. Someone's voice from the device demands to simply take Yui. The unknown mech hesitates but is forced to obey. Aruna stops in front of the fallen enemy. Looking at the destroyed mech, she notices the Elysian crest. The surviving captain of the Beast King mercenaries smirked. The peerless Iron Knights had won again. He was thinking about upping the ante next time. The team notices that the black mech has disappeared somewhere. Suddenly, a metallic screeching sound and some other sound are heard from the direction of the defeated mech. Yuta listens to the sounds. Aruna assumes that it is the pilot's voice. Perhaps he is still alive. The young man jumps out of the mech, heading towards the enemy. His friends try to dissuade him, but the hero is adamant. For him now, this is just a wounded man. Emina, only half-conscious, hears some sounds outside. An enemy? Yes, that's right, she lost. A young man opens the cabin. The girl remembers how she promised to treat Yui to sweets in the imperial capital. In tears, she apologizes to her friend for not keeping her promise. Emina loses consciousness. Looking at the enemy pilot, Yuta notices the terrible wounds, but maybe they still have a chance to help her. The hero quickly turns to his friends and asks Aruna if she can do anything. The girl says that there is a medical capsule in the transport bay. Let Yuta carry the wounded woman there. The protagonist's kind-heartedness never ceases to amaze Jean. Yuta sarcastically apologizes to his friend for this. He asks Aruna with admiration if her medical capsule can really heal a wounded pilot. The girl confirms, if we are talking about ordinary wounds, then yes. However, the model is outdated, so it will take time. The team began to discuss how things were going on the front lines. They had cornered the Kyrakia forces. It was only a matter of time before they would be defeated. However, their reinforcements were quite strong. What units were they from? Aruna noticed that these were magical bellows. Only the country's emblem and color were replaced. The girl remembered the enemy mech with the Elysian coat of arms. She has no doubt these machines are from there. Jean is indignant at Aruna's words and cannot believe that she is serious. But Falma confirms the girl's words. This is a medium universal mech of the Luden class, and it is definitely Elysian. Listening to his friends, Yuta thinks that he has heard the name Elysia somewhere, but where? He asks Jean if Kirks knows about it. The guy replies that you shouldn't rely on their intelligence department. They didn't know. Besides, if Kirks refused to pay them this time, they would leave the country. Yuta agreed with his friend's words. They had no business being in a place run by such incompetent people. At the mercenary meeting, the general decided to praise the Iron Knights. They had shown themselves well in battle. However, he immediately added that they had refused to reinforce the mercenaries of the Beast King, which was followed by a report of their defeat. Jean asked the general if this was the entire assessment of the Iron Knights in the last battle. He answered that it was, adding that Kirks would not be able to pay them this time either. Yuta said that in that case, he would like to terminate the contract. The Iron Knights no longer care how serious the enemy is. Now Kirks will have to rely on his good friends, the Beast King's mercenaries. In a deserted cemetery, Yui encounters Yuto leaning over someone's grave. Unable to stop her tears, the girl says that Emina was killed before her eyes and she could do nothing. Salty drops fall on the bouquet in her hands. The young man tries to calm her down. Yuyuto reports that the Emperor has ordered the Beast King mercenaries and the Kirks Republic forces to be slaughtered. No more prisoners of war, no more surrender. Yui is terribly angry, so she doesn't object. Princess Lainel calls out loudly for Nagisa. The girl turns around, asking what's wrong. Lainel cheerfully reports that she managed to get some information about the guy Nagisa is looking for. The merchant who bought him has been found. Hearing this, the girl perked up. But the princess slowed down a bit. The merchant was found but dead, and Yuta himself was missing. Nagisa looked at her friend in bewilderment. Lainel was confused but said that it was not the same as the news of the boy's death. There was a possibility that he had simply run away. Nagisa, confused, agreed. Lainel added that Nagisa was called by Mr. Majuni. After all, this would be her first mission. Trying to console her friend a little, Lainel said that it was too early to judge. Yuta could very well be sitting somewhere, alive and well. In Majuni's office, Nagisa asks the man again in surprise. She, accompany, he confirms. There is a meeting of neighboring countries next week and he would like her to accompany him. Of course, Lainel and the others will go with them. It seems that this is a mission of great importance. And Nagisa still does not understand why she was chosen. Majuni explains with a smile that it is all about wanting to show off the half-radar, the pride of their country. In parallel with the preparation of the furs, Lainel enlightens her friend about the political structure of their world. This will be a congress of the so-called League of Eastern Nations, an organization that includes 12 small countries. This coalition was created so that small countries could negotiate with larger powers on roughly equal terms. And without the proper support, this is quite difficult. Temra, where they are headed, is the center of the League of Eastern Nations. And within the coalition, it is a fairly large country. And on the agenda this time is the recent suspicious activity in the neighboring empire of Ruja. Nagisa is curious about what this suspicious activity is. Lainel replied dejectedly that they seem to be increasing their military strength, the recent mass purchase of magical mechs and pilots. Nagisa had an unpleasant thought. Lainel confirmed they are preparing for war, and the meeting will be devoted to measures to prevent it. Meanwhile, in Kirks, in the central square of Tarud, the execution of the now former general and captain of the mercenaries of the King of the Beast is about to take place. The mercenary and the former general stand tied to a huge wooden pole. Onlookers from all over the area have gathered to watch the spectacle of being burned alive. A stranger approaches the condemned man and asks if the captain knows her. He rather rudely replies that he doesn't. And who is she anyway? Yui replies that they fought in a recent battle. She was piloting a black onyx magical mech. The captain is hurt by this information. Does it mean that the one who beat him up so badly was a little girl? Yui objects because the Beast King's mercenaries beat them head-on. She asks the man if any of his allies have piloted the golden mech. He immediately winces in anger. Then the mercenary starts laughing madly. He explains to the girl that it was not their pilot but a mercenary from the unrivaled Iron Knights. His strength is beyond measure, and if the captain had not appropriated their merits, then they would have fallen into the clutches of the enemy. Yui remembers the name of the team. This information is also new to the general. Grinning sarcastically, the captain of the Beast King's mercenaries decides to tell the truth at the end. He couldn't compete with them openly, so he had to resort to trickery. Continuing to grin, the mercenary adds that the general is a complete fool. If he hadn't chased the Iron Knights away, they wouldn't be in this mess now. The general is beating himself in impotent rage. He has a wife, children. The mercenary says it's too late to make noise and suggests that they just die here together in peace and quiet. The general sadly asks if those ridiculous results of the Iron Knights were ever true. The mercenary continues. He did not expect that they would be defeated so quickly once the Iron Knights retreated. The Elysian punitive offensive was truly terrifying. Yui was no longer interested in them and turned around. When asked about her health, the girl replied that she was fine. A huge fire was blazing behind her, but it was not her friend's killers who were burning there, as she had hoped. Nanami points an indignant finger at Jean and declares that she is dying of boredom here. The guy suggests that she wait until a new job comes along. But the girl is adamant. She wants to get out of here. Aruna says that some interesting news has come up, so they have something to discuss. While Nanami and Falma are having fun on the lawn, Jean is delighted by the news. It turns out that Kirks has already fallen. Ultimately, Elysia crushed them using their best pilots. Turning to Yuta, Aruna says that if this is really the case, then we are talking about real monsters. The boy asks if she knows them. The girl replies that she has done business with them, and this is definitely an opponent that Yuta would never want to fight. While Nanami is very excited about something, Yuta is wolfing down the food and telling the girl not to go far. But he doesn't have time to finish the sentence. Seeing the big guy, the main character couldn't utter a word, dropping his cup in the process. Nanami seemed to like the Frankenstein-like creature, but Yuta stuttered as he tried to ask what it wanted. The creature turned out to be surprisingly friendly. It immediately apologized and explained, there are many different animals in the forest and the aliens have such a huge box. So the big guy thought they were poachers. Apparently, the creature was talking about a storage area for furs. Yuta calmed down a bit and explained that they were not here to hunt animals. The creature seemed pleased. Calling them good people, the big guy extended his hand to Yuta to introduce himself and introduced himself as Lorgo. The hero introduced himself in return and thought that Lorgo certainly didn't look like a scoundrel. The young man asked his new acquaintance if he liked animals. Lorgo said that he wanted to protect all the animals of this forest. Yuta told the big guy that he was a kind person. He was a little surprised. Lorgo said that once upon a time his mother told him to be kind, but now she is dead, so he really succeeded. Then the big guy added that his father had also passed away last month and he missed him very much. Yuta came to the conclusion that the nature of this creature was the opposite of its appearance. The hero offered Lorgo to be friends. Maybe then he wouldn't be lonely. Nanami and Falma ran up and also offered friendship to the big guy. He didn't know what to answer. The touched Lorgo couldn't hold back his tears and called this day the happiest in his life. The guys suggested that he go to their big box. They were friends now, so they could have dinner together. Jean glared at Lorgo. As expected, the big man had an appetite as big as his own. He greedily gobbled up plate after plate. Having finished the next dish, Lorgo asked the guy if it was the same one, the main thing from the place they came from. Jean answered irritably that it was 15 plates ago. Aruna began to question her new acquaintance. Does he live somewhere nearby? He answered that he lives very close. Having caught him on this, the animated Jean offered to give the big guy a ride. After all, it is dangerous to walk alone at night. Lorgo thanked the guys and said that he would like to invite them to visit him too. Yuta was not against it. If, of course, the whole team could fit in his place. The new friend said that they were there. Jean asked again if Lorgo had definitely not confused the road. The big guy confirmed that the path was correct, but Jean could not believe his eyes. Lorgo's home turned out to be an old but large and luxurious castle, just like from a fairy tale. Looking at the magnificent castle, Aruna was also speechless. She asked Lorgo who he was. It turns out that the big guy found out last month that he is a local lord. Lorgo was a little embarrassed, saying that although he had invited them to visit, there was almost nothing in this house. The guys reassured him, noting that it would take a whole day to see everything here. Jean asked Aruna why Lisa hadn't come. The girl bitterly noted that her friend loved solitude too much, and she would have liked her to be more sociable. Meanwhile, Lorgo led them to some room. The big guy pressed a special mechanism and the door opened. Jean noted that he was pretty strict with security here. Lorgo said that this was the largest room. He said that before his death, his father gave him what was in this room, and it was kept here until now. Finally, his father left him the power to protect his lands. The crew's gaze was met by a huge, richly decorated fur. Now it was Falma's turn to admire. She immediately rattled off that this was the magical Mech Ganesh, the subclass Highlander, and the starting power was 15,000 Ludia. This was a very rare machine. There were only a few of them on the entire continent. Yuta asked his new friend if it was a Highlander. Lorgo confirmed, saying that he had been instructed to use the machine when his property was threatened. Jean noted that Lorgo was a good lord. Not everyone was capable of following the priority of safety in practice. The big man modestly scratched his head and said that he was pleased when people spoke well of his father. Then Lorgo led the team further, and Jean, perplexed, said that, in fact, he had praised him, not his father. The next day, someone began to knock loudly on the castle doors and call for the Lord. Loud screams woke up Yuta. Lorgo opened the door and asked the people what happened. In front of him was a group of disgruntled farmers. One of them said that it had happened. Nothing had been done with the equipment of the aqueducts in the fields and the well in the village. These cries also woke up Jean. Lorgo said he was sorry, but he didn't know what to do about it. The farmers pressed him even harder. He was a lord, wasn't he? And they were in deep trouble. Jean decided to go out to talk to the disgruntled peasants. First, he asked them what all the noise was about so early in the morning. They immediately took him with hostility, asking the stranger to stay out of their way. Jean only laughed at their words. He confidently said that his team would sort it out, so let the peasants show what happened there. As a result, Jean was unusually skillful in directing the mechs as they repaired the aqueduct. Let Yuta straighten the ditch, let Nanami move the stone, let Aruna straighten the places marked on the map. Yuta admired his friend's knowledge of public works. Jean chuckled, noting that knowledge was a merchant's greatest weapon. The aqueduct built under Jean's direction was magnificent. Lorgo didn't know how to thank his new friends. The big guy just stood there, stumbling from the accumulated emotions. While Yuta was enjoying the work done, one of the farmers said that next time they should react faster. The young man was about to start arguing with him, but Jean stopped him. The guy himself addressed the people, saying that when something is done for them, it is not something that is taken for granted. Jean told Lorgo, who was crying nearby, that he really did not seem fit to be a lord. Jean didn't want to offend the big guy, but tried to explain. The good thing is, he should return these lands to the ruler of the country. Lorgo objected because he promised his father that he would protect the people who lived here. Jean looked at him for a minute and stepped back. It was time to say goodbye to Lorgo. The boys thanked him. They were pleased to visit their new friend, even if it was only for a short time. Falma told her friend to eat well and Nanami to take care of herself. Jean demanded that Lorgo give his ungrateful peasants a hard time, and Aruna told him to call if he needed anything. Yuta, after saying goodbye, added that they were true friends. Lisa said goodbye nervously, leaving Lorgo wondering who she was. When the team finally departed, Jean admitted that their new friend was a funny guy. Nanami noted that they should have invited the big guy to join the Iron Knights. Yuta agreed, but Lorgo was still a lord of the lands. Jean still thought it would be a burden on him. Yuta agreed, but said he couldn't force Lorgo to leave everything here and come with them. Suddenly, Jean turned the team's attention to the eastern plain. In the middle of the plain stood two mechs. Two men, one of whom was tinkering with the machine, were discussing something. The fair-haired man noted that since there were no vassals or soldiers here, and only one foolish lord ruled these lands, capturing them would not be difficult. While discussing their insidious plans, the men did not even notice Jean and Aruna. Before the villain could come to his senses, Aruna put a knife to his throat, offering to share this fascinating story. Meanwhile, a huge explosion occurred in the lands of Lorgo. Surrounded by bandits, Lorgo did not give up until the last, which enraged them. One of the villains noted that they had at least 30 mechs on their side. Two fell off, so only 28. Lorgo screamed at them in rage. When the villains noticed the free passage, Lorgo rushed after them. The peasants came out of their houses, hearing the sounds of battle. Bursting into tears, Lorgo said that although he could do nothing for his people right now, the bandit interrupted him, demanding that he get out of the way. The main character and Aruna saw a scene of beating a man lying down. Two mechs, controlled by bandits, were kicking Lorgo inside the mighty Ganesha. He was already pretty badly battered. Yuta shouted at the top of his lungs to his friend that they were already on their way to help. Lorgo couldn't believe that his friends were here. Crying again, the Lord admitted that he didn't know what to do. He tried to protect everyone, but the promise he made to his father. Yuta told his friend not to cry, their team would figure it out. The hero added that Lorgo had done a good job, and that was exactly what the big guy wanted to hear. The team attacked without any mercy, and the bandits felt a rising panic. Where did these guys come from? It was no trouble at all to deal with the gang. Looking over the piles of fallen scrap metal, Yuta finally exhaled. The grateful Lorgo did not know how to approach him, and the hero finally decided to offer him to go with them. Lorgo was about to tell his father about his promise once again, but the village men called out to him. The big man asked the people why they hadn't run away. The peasants honestly said that he was not fit to be a ruler. Lorgo sadly agreed with them, after which the villagers suggested that he go with his friends. The peasant in the hat said that they might not understand anything about modern engineering, but they could take care of themselves. The peasant with the mustache added, why tie himself down with promises when he had already done enough? Finally, the peasant in the hat conveyed to Lorgo the main truth for the big man. It was time to start living his own life. Lorgo turns his head looking for Yuta. Having found the hero, he approaches him with questions. How can he, a simple country bumpkin, help the team? The big guy is worried that he will only ruin everything. The protagonist calms his friend down and suggests that they simply set out on their journey. Shedding tears of happiness and gratefully holding Yuta's hands, Lorgo solemnly announces that he is now leaving his post as lord of these lands. A new problem arose. Lorgo could not write the right to transfer his lands on the first try. The amount of paper used shocked Jean. The guy angrily reminded his friend that paper is a valuable resource. After checking the next scribble, Jean calmed down. It seemed that everything was correct. Now the rights to Lorgo's lands could be transferred to someone else. Nanami happily asked if their new friend could stay with them permanently. Lorgo confirmed. Falma said that they should choose a room for him. Aruna reminded them that it was time to hand the paper to the ruler. Meanwhile, Emina woke up inside the medical capsule. Opening her eyes, the girl tries to understand where she is and remember what happened to her. Emina doesn't understand how she ended up in the capsule. Rubbing her temple, she stands up. Fragments of memories from the last battle flash through her head. But the girl can't put this chaos together yet. In any case, she needs to figure out the situation. Emina entered the room just as Yuta was carrying a mountain of dishes to wash. The young man jumped in surprise, dropping everything on the floor. He tried to hint to the girl that she should not rush. Not immediately understanding what he was talking about, Emina looked down and then blushed. Jean noticed that this was a huge turn. After some time, Emina, who had already dressed, said that the guys had failed to convince her. She remembered very well how they had fought against the mercenaries of the Beast King and their defeat. Yuta tries to convey that it was not so. Emina and her comrade fought against them, the peerless Iron Knights, and Emina herself was defeated by the golden magical Fur Vajra. After looking at the hero for a moment, Emina replied that even if she fell for it, there was one thing she just couldn't get her head around. Namely, that this machine was piloted by a small child. As she said this, the girl pointed at Nanami, unable to believe that this girl was piloting that mech. Nanami approached Emina and starting to squeeze her hand, apologized. Making eyes, the girl said that she was in despair and asked if it hurt. Making a puzzled face, Emina asked if Nanami was crazy. Unable to accept this defeat, the girl slammed the table, demanding that Nanami fight her in a fair duel. Nanami shuddered and said that she actually didn't like it. Jean looked bored and said that he didn't approve of this fight. After all, you can't make a dime out of it. Emina said that she understood him. The guy immediately perked up and offered to bet. His eyes were already shining with the light of money. It remains to be decided which mech Emina will pilot during the duel. Aruna and Falma refused to lend theirs. Yuta offered his Alio, but this mech. Yuta looked at the girl and saw that she was already signing some contract, issued by Jean, who had gotten busy in time. The hero didn't think this was the best idea. After signing the paper, Emina ran to look for Alio, quickly clarifying that it was a white magical fur and saying something about its maneuverability. Yuta wanted to say that this was precisely why Alio, but he didn't have time to finish the sentence. Sitting inside the white fur, Emina noticed that Alio was quite old. Oh well, she would activate him, but nothing happened. Emina's cries could be heard from the cabin. She's not some run-of-the-mill Highlander, she has over 20,000. Jean was already looking at the contract, which said that in the event of an unsuccessful activation, the victory would automatically be counted as Nanami's. This was exactly what Yuta had wanted to tell her earlier. Emina was furious. The girl indignantly screamed that they had fooled her by giving her a non-working fur, and if so, the match was invalid. Jean looked at the contract again. The application for the game costs 500,000. The fee for winning is the same as the equipment rental. So in the end, Emina owes 1.5 million. He added another 500,000 on top. The girl flatly refused to pay so that they wouldn't pour it on her here. Suddenly, someone's heavy steps were heard from behind. Turning around, she noticed some kind of monster. Jean told Lorgo that this girl was simply awful. Almost at the same moment, Emina agreed to pay and asked only to give her a lift to the nearest Ruddlebank. At the branch, it turned out that the client was considered dead, so his account was frozen. The girl was confused. Aruna, who was standing nearby, said that it seemed that Emina was listed as dead in her homeland. It turned out that she was in trouble. The girl is almost crying. She is alive after all. She assumes that if this is the case, then the only way to pay off the debt is to pay with her body. The team is carrying some cargo and Jean is yelling at them. They need to move 10 more magnetic blocks and 3 dozen nanotubes, and preferably do it as quickly as possible. Holding a bulky suitcase in her hands, Emina looks at this picture in bewilderment. Jean turns around and explains that he meant help in the mercenary trade. The girl will pay off her debt by working for him. The thought of becoming a mercenary pleased Emina. and she said that she would be happy to try. Jean solemnly announced, "From now on, Emina is a newcomer to the ranks of the incomparable Iron Knights, and in the work of a mercenary it is of utmost importance. Pick up a magic mech." Jean said that since Emina would be driving the car, the choice was hers. The girl was pleasantly surprised. But almost immediately, the guy noted that the more expensive the fur she chose, the more Emina's debt would increase. The girl thought that this Jean was unusually nimble. Nanami pointed at some fur, saying that she wanted it. Jean replied that it wasn't her who chose the fur, and Falma immediately began to lecture about this fur, its characteristics and history. No one really listened to her, but the girl didn't care. And Emina thought about it. After observing them for a while, she realized that this group of mercenaries was completely different from what she was used to seeing in the ranks of the Elysian army. Especially this guy Yudo, who reminds her so much of Yui. Smiling at her thoughts, Emina decided that she wouldn't mind staying here a little longer. Having learned the amount that Emina would pay off per day, Yudo was afraid of his friend. Jean asked Yuda to be quiet and whispered in his ear that if you take into account the rent for the fur, food, and accommodation, it comes to 9,500. And this is with a daily allowance of 10,000. Yuda even felt a bit sorry for her new comrade. Meanwhile, Jean continued, "Emina said that she is a Highlander over the 20,000 threshold, didn't she? And such pilots, by the way, aren't lying around on the road." These money discussions did not go unnoticed by Emina. To say that she is not worried at all would be a lie. Emina wanted to say something, but Lisa immediately interrupted her. The armor of the magic fur she bought was too specific, and she had no idea what to do with it. Emina nervously apologized. Nanami kept saying that she was tired and wanted to go swimming. Aruna said that she could use some new weapons. Jean cursed his annoying friends, what expensive workers they were. But then he cooled down and agreed. Anyway, he wanted to get out somewhere since they had already come to this city. The team arrived at the luxurious, palace-like building of Edo Spa. Jean pointed his finger at it solemnly, noting that he had long wanted to visit here at least once. The guy said that there were various types of baths and massages. In addition, there was also a sauna, first-class deep healing. Yuda assumed that it was a sanatorium. One of the guys told him that he expected nothing else from Earthlings. Someone else added that, according to rumors, the owner of this establishment was also from Earth. The girl at the reception informed the company that the men's changing room was on the left and the women's on the right. Yuda asked Jean if there were mixed baths here. His friend confirmed, not understanding the hero's surprise. Stretching contentedly, the hero finally relaxed in the bath. All the accumulated tension was gone. This piece seemed very much in the spirit of his native Japan. So calm, no one bothering him, when suddenly someone splashed water right in his face. A female voice yelled that Yuda was bothering him and that he should get out. Some impudent girl declared that she was going to go in there now, so let the young man go. Behind her, like a statue, stands a servant. Having calmed his nerves a little, Yuda asked the girl who she was anyway. He also noted that there was plenty of room here, so why should he go out? The stranger asked a counter-question. Was Yuda offering her to swim with a young man she didn't even know? The main character said that he didn't care and he wasn't going anywhere. The girl snapped her finger, calling the servant Arthur, who was standing behind him with a blissful face. He understood the mistress's order without words and bowing began to carry it out. Arthur's calm expression suddenly changed to an angry one and he pounced on Yuda. Furiously trying to pull the hero out of the bath, the servant cursed, "This is Mrs. Lynn Carlo's place, so get out, or else." Aruna appeared just in time and with a scream kicked Arthur in the nose. The servant flew to the other end of the pool. Mrs. Lynn Carlo was indignant. What was this stranger doing? How dare she hit her well-groomed face, the subject of her pride, in front of other people? And what if it gets damaged? It turns out that Arthur will lose his key advantage. The servant's face was visibly distorted by Aruna's blow. The unfortunate man called his mistress, but she noticed that all that was beautiful in him had faded. Lynn Carlo declared that her patience had snapped. If it had come to this, then there would be a duel. Pointing at Yuta and Aruna, she demanded that they fight her. But the boys were already relaxing in the bathhouse. Yudo and Aruna came up with the idea of challenging this strange girl to a contest of who could last the longest in the sauna. They assured her that it would be a 2-on-2 fight to the death. The girl agreed but demanded that they enter at the same time. The team that holds out longer wins, but the loser will do whatever the winner demands. Aruna liked the conditions. She added that if Lina Carlo lost, she would make her dance naked. In response, the girl promised that if Yuda and Aruna lost, she would bring them down to earth. All that was left was to come up with a punishment. Finally, the four of them entered the sauna. It was hotter than Lynn Carlo had expected. The perfect place for a competition, in her opinion. The boys quickly regretted their idea. They decided to move lower where the heat was not so strong. Lynn Carlo teased them about it. Low characters sat so low, eloquent. 5 minutes later, the lady said that she was at her limit and for the rest she relied on Arthur. With these words, she headed for the exit. The faithful servant said that she could count on him. Aruna admitted that it was indeed difficult, asking Yuta not to overdo it. The boy hesitantly said that he could hold out a little longer. Turning to Arthur, he told him not to get too worked up either. But it turned out that Arthur had been exhausted to the point of being almost a corpse. The boy, exhausted for the glory of his mistress, had to be handed over to the doctors. Carlo angrily told the boys not to think they had won. After all, this was a three-legged match, and the next one would be a breath-holding match. Yuta tried to calm the girl down, noting that it was very tiring and it was time to finish. Suddenly, Arthur's voice was heard from the side. He was calling the mistress and crawling towards her. Delighted to see a living servant, Carlo demanded that the competition begin. 20 seconds passed, and the mistress again left everything to Arthur. The half-dead servant was carried away again on a stretcher. Carlo said that they still had 3 rounds to go. Judah replied that they had already had 2 and that he and Aruna had already won them. But the annoying stranger noticed that the points tripled in the 3rd round. Yuta couldn't resist saying that Carlo was a real pain. Why couldn't she choose something she was really good at? And they all ended up swimming together anyway. The girl grinned and looked at the protagonist with an ominous expression. Did he just say he wanted to compete in something she was really good at? Yuta and Aruna looked at Carlo with fear. Her words did not bode well and she seemed too confident. As it turns out, what Ms. Carlo is best at is magical bellows. First of all, she would like to praise the boys for not running away with their tails between their legs. While the lady was saying this, loyal Arthur loomed in the background, saying that he had completely come to his senses and was ready to serve her. After looking at Yuta and Aruna's team, Carlo declared that they would be fighting her with 2 of their strongest pilots. How did they like that offer? Yuta didn't understand. What did all the others have to do with it? Falma was already looking at the furs of the mistress and her servant in amazement. Suddenly, Aruna had a guess. Could it be that Carlo? One of the 12 excellent Emperor of Thunder Carlo. To Aruna's words, the girl noted that since they knew about her, they had every right to run away. No one would judge them. Yuta said that they wouldn't run away. After all, he was the one who suggested it. Nanami, who was standing next to him, said that after the hero, she was the best. Jean shouted, trying to reason with his friends. Do they even see the person they're talking to? It's the Thunder Emperor Carlo. The protagonist confirmed that he had heard. As far as he knew, he was a world-famous big shot. Jean said, perplexed, something like that. Carlo was pleased with the arrangement and suggested choosing an opponent for her knight apprentice Arthur. Arthur himself, bowing once again, noted that he was a centaur pilot. Nanami asked for this to be given to her, confidently declaring that she would smash the apprentice knight to smithereens. Speaking from the first storage, Jean asked the boys if they were ready. He noted that they would play until 2 victories. The match began. A luxuriously inlaid mech in the form of a metallic centaur rushed straight at Vajra. Nanami was overcome with fear. The centaur rushing towards her was an analog of cavalry. Falma asked her friend to be careful, reminding her that the offensive power of this mech exceeds 30,000. The attack was of colossal force. The earth shook. Not without difficulty, but Nanami managed to parry it. Carlo, who was watching the fight, couldn't believe that this girl was able to block the centaur's charge on the first try. Could it be that she was also beyond 30,000? But would she be able to block the second attack? Arthur makes a second attack. Nanami stares at her opponent, thinking of something. The centaur rushes towards her and she rushes towards him. Arthur is confused and Falma is seriously scared, shouting to her friend that it is dangerous. But Vajra keeps rushing towards him. Arthur thinks that his opponent has gone crazy, otherwise why is she rushing straight towards his centaur's spear? But Nanami stops a few centimeters from the spear. With a powerful blow, Vajra cuts down the centaur's legs, breaking them in half. Jean shouts enthusiastically that it was a great match, but that's it. Victory goes to Nanami. Carlo scolds the student crawling at her feet. How could he lose to this child? Then she turns to Yuta and Nanami, saying that it's okay. She was going to deal with them herself anyway. She will show them why she is called the Emperor of Thunder. Carlo proudly says that she will show Nanami and Yuta why she is called the Emperor of Thunder. The opponents are asked if they are ready. The blonde girl replies that of course she is ready. She promises to finish this in literally a minute, so she suggests getting down to business. Nanami doubtfully repeats her words about a minute. The match is announced to begin. Nanami shouts that she has enough strength for a new enemy. Lin responds by noting that the girl likes to brag, but that's it. What exactly? That's just it, she doesn't finish telling. Falma understands everything. She shouts at her friend to be careful because according to rumors, Odin Lin has Carlo. There is an unpredictable long-range attack. As she speaks, the Thunder Empress uses this attack. Nanami notices her too late and doesn't have time to dodge. The weapon falls from the mech's hands, and the battlefield is plunged into a fog from the sand raised into the air. Lin chuckles questioningly and wonders out loud if she's overdone it. Then the fog clears and Nanami's fur is back in place. The girl cries out in surprise. She didn't expect this at all. The hero's girlfriend asks her opponent forcefully how she can do such a thing when she is overtaken so that she cannot even see. The blonde girl replies that she is surprisingly smart. Her appearance was able to fool her. The centaur grabs Vajura's weapon arm. Nanami is surprised by this technique. She is told in response that Lin Carlo, one of the dozen excellent ones, should not be underestimated. The dark-haired girl doesn't understand what's going on, how Wajuro can lose his strength. Lin responds that it's been a while since anyone forced her to resort to such a technique, so she wants to enjoy it to her heart's content. After these words, the girl uses a melee attack right at the mech's head. This surprises the audience. The fog clears, revealing a mangled hole where Wajuro's head used to be. Nanami tries to catch her breath, then stutters as she asks if she's lost. Lin grins and asks how his opponent feels as he begins to apply the new technique. Jean is incredulous at the power at the disposal of a dozen superiors. The Thunder Emperor at this time is already confident that victory is hers. She turns around and, pointing her mechs at the hero, says that it's his turn now. Yuta thinks to himself that such an unpredictable long-range attack is undoubtedly a formidable weapon. He notices that the shield Nanami was using was not damaged by the attack. Is it just a shockwave, or is it an impact that affects parts of the machinery? He asks his girlfriend out loud if he can borrow her sword and shield. The girl allows it and says that the guy should give Lina a good beating for her. Yuta takes the weapon and gets into a fighting stance. Jean announces that in any case they have the final round. He notes to himself that, frankly speaking, he almost forgot that they actually have a competition here. Then he says that there is a loser on both sides. This is the final. The hero thinks that if his guess is correct, then as long as the shield is up, he has a chance to prevent her attack. Lin, still smirking, asks him how long he thinks he can resist her. The start of the match is announced. The opponents immediately attack each other. Yuta gets scared but manages to put up a shield. He cries out from the tension. The hero notices how powerful the blow is, but if it comes to close combat, he doesn't have time to finish. He is attacked again. Yuta wonders, they don't want to say. The girl smirks and stretches out her hand in understanding. Lin realizes that he was thinking that she simply couldn't attack like that multiple times. The hero curses. The Thunder Emperor uses another powerful attack. Yuta puts up a shield, but it shatters under the onslaught of her power. The hero drops his shield and cuts her attack with his blade. This greatly surprises her. He says that even though he lost his shield, he was able to get very close to her. Lin encourages him to take action. She didn't think that anyone would ever manage to lead her to this action again. The girl announces that she will then demonstrate to him the full power of her Odin and raises her weapon. She sticks it into the ground, which begins to collapse, and then a storm forms. The guy realizes that this is a medium-range attack. He didn't know that was possible. He groans from the strain and sees that everything has turned out to be not in his favor. The audience has realized this too. They are shouting that Lin has had enough of him. Jack is worried about who will fix it now. Aluna notices something. She sees Yuyuta concentrating Ludia. Power flows around the hero. The Thunder Emperor doesn't understand what this aura is. Does the hero still hope to turn the situation in his favor? She asks what kind of bluff this is and notes that he can't turn a blind eye to the damage he's received. The hero is rapidly approaching the centaur. Lin did not expect that the guy was going to attack further. She uses a mid-range attack, a storm. At this moment, Yuta also begins to concentrate his power and breaks through closer to her. The girl wonders in horror why the storm didn't work. The hero cuts the storm and aims the attack at the top of her mech. Lin still can't believe that she actually lost. Her mech loses the top part of her battle suit. The match ends and everyone moves to their base. Jack praises the hero for his excellent work. Aruna notes that this is all she expected from her beloved man. Emina attracts attention and asks what was that at the end, what he did. Yuta does not understand what she is talking about, what he did. The girl runs up to him, grabs him by the neck and demands to know what the hell was going on. The guy doesn't know what to answer her. At that moment, Lin Carlo comes up to them. She calls Yuyuta. He greets her and tries to remember the name of her companion. He tells her that his name is Arthur. The girl, stammering and very worried, asks how he was able to stand up to her. She also says that he did well. The guy is surprised by her words. He tries to answer something. Lin interrupts him and says that, however, she could have fought better, but since their team stopped the match, she declares a draw this time. The hero agrees. After all, they are already finished. However, she thinks it's amazing that Yuta was able to handle her. So she has a suggestion. She wants to hire them. Jack asks her to wait a minute. He asks why she would hire anyone at all considering her daring. Lin is silent for a while, and then asks if they don't know that she has another side to her, different from the Thunder Emperor. It is announced that her full name is Lin Carlo Dadenberg II. She is the third princess of the Malteria Kingdom and a former commander of the magical mech military corps. Rumor has it that the neighboring empire of Dawarakia suffered hundreds of casualties after the war with the Niai. After those events, she became a source of fear for people and was nicknamed the God of Destruction. That's all Aluna knows about her. Jack tells the third princess that she made it clear that she cannot speak in the middle of the city and asks what she wants. The girl thinks about how to say everything correctly. She says that the king of Malteria is currently in critical condition, which is why the situation in the kingdom is so unstable. She is ninth in line to the throne but has no intention of claiming it. In any case, the choice will be made between the top 5 heirs. But the first Prince Mushim is just a soulless demon in the flesh, and if he comes to power, their country will end. In any case, there will be a council on the succession soon, and she would like to introduce them there. It remains to be seen whether they will show up. The hero does not understand whether they should do this. Lin replies that of course they should. She wants them to be the new spark for the royal family. The heroes remain silent in response. Only Jacques says that she is simply something. Everyone goes to the castle. The man thinks it looks very suspicious. The princess explains that behind these doors is a meeting room for the royal family, a round table. The door opens for them. They walk into a room full of people. The hero is surprised when a man approaches them. He asks Princess Lin Carlo who these plebeians are, and doesn't she know that only members of the royal family are allowed into the sacred hall of the round table. The girl answers Prime Minister Blore that these are mercenaries hired by her, so she asks him not to be rude. The rest pay no attention to this conversation. One of the men asks again about the mercenaries and asks Lin Carlo not to make him laugh. Did she really decide to go against the rule? No heir to the throne should have military forces at his disposal. The princess turns to Brother Builder and says that despite the fact that they are mercenaries, she has no more than 10 of them with her, and for now she has hired them only to accompany her during negotiations. Another person intervenes in their conversation. He notices that this is just a harmless joke of their younger sister. Builder does not understand why Brother Mushim says this. Yuta hears a name. As far as he remembers, he was called a demon. He looks at the man. Is it really him? Mushim whispers to his brother that these are just a few mercenaries. There is nothing to worry about. He understands that this is true because she is the one to be afraid of. Builder says out loud that they have 2,000 magical mechs in their service, so despite all its advantages, he doesn't have time to finish. Lin comes up to them and asks if she heard correctly. They now have 2,000 magical furs at their disposal. Is that what they just said? Could it be that this is about her successor as Commander Cruise? Mushim is surprised by her insight. Or maybe there is some connection with the rumor that she is the one with whom Brother Mushim spends his nights. The man yells at his sister in response, insulting her. Yuta covers the princess and asks them to stop. A fourth person intervenes in their conversation. He also asks them to calm down quickly. This man reminds them that this is a meeting in a sacred dream. The brother and sister fall silent. The hero sees with horror that everything here is very tense. It sounds like an aristocratic family squabble, and it immediately feels like he's in a history book. Blore suggests moving on to the main topic of the meeting, the contenders for the throne. The third princess asks if it is really necessary to discuss this, since the king has already announced the name of the heir. This is the crown Prince Yudin, and she thinks he is perfect for this role. Mushim quietly talks about Yudin and asks not to make him laugh because he is the first prince. He says loudly that the king made this choice while lying in a hospital bed and delirious, so it is hard to believe that he was capable of making a sane, balanced decision. Lin asks in response whether he means to say that when lying sick in bed, a person loses his vaunted insight. Her brother does not advise her to get too carried away. Even if her Ludia value is somewhat high, this is not at all a reason to show such arrogance. He looks at the minister, who understands and returns to the discussion. The man asks what about the key issue, who they think should inherit the throne. He suggests that they decide the issue by voting. Lin shouts that she is protesting because the king's will is unbreakable, which means the crown prince must inherit the throne. Mushim calmly notes that the girl is behaving extremely ugly. He himself agrees with the voting. Builder supports him. He also agrees. The prime minister then asks the rest of those present to indicate their position on approving the vote. They should raise their hand if they agree. Everyone raises their hands. Yudin can't object to this. Lin can only get angry too. Now that the motion has been approved by a majority vote, it is announced that a council to adopt the resolution will be held in 5 days. and will include 5 dukes and 4 adult members of the royal family, in addition to the interested parties. The third princess remains angry about the decision made. After the meeting, the heroes go to a separate room for discussion. Lin says that this is exactly what she expected. At this rate, Mushim will become king. Judah reminds us that, as was said earlier, there is supposedly a vote planned there. Jack explains that usually the outcome of votes involving important government figures is decided before the vote begins. The girl says that it is. The third princess reveals that second Prince Balder, second Princess Lyndall, Prime Minister Blur, Mushim's father-in-law Duke Karen, and Duke Homer, who has business ties with Mushim. Here's the expected reach of his influence if he were to vote. Utah counted it all on his fingers. He is surprised to realize that there are 5 of them, and this is based on the calculation that there will be 9 of them. Jacques says that he knew it, these people have already decided and just want to hide behind the vote. Aluna asks if anyone has any ideas. Lin says that at this point in the game, the only ones who will vote for Yudin are herself and First Princess Rilia, but Dukes Reidmart and Balerma don't like Mushim, so they can be convinced. The problem is 1 vote. The hero offers to convince the second prince or princess. The girl says in response that it won't work, it's hard to even imagine since they think in the same way. So she thinks they should target Duke Homel if they're only interested in business, something to negotiate from. Yuta doesn't quite understand what she's talking about. Lin, before explaining, gives them 100 million as an advance and compensation for repairing the damaged furs. She promises to pay the rest upon completion of the task. Jacques likes that she pays in advance. The girl says in response that she never goes back on her word. The hero notes to himself that, in fact, at first this was not enough. The crown prince enters the room, pushing a cart with sacks. He asks his sister to introduce him to the guests. She agrees and introduces everyone to her younger brother Yudin. He says he is glad to meet her and extends his hand. Yuta shakes it and introduces himself in return, calling himself one of the peerless knights of steel, and he introduces the prince to Jean and Aluna. Jean looks at the money and asks if it belongs to Yudin. He wonders if the princess really doesn't have any of her own. Lin is embarrassed and replies that no, and her brother just covered for her a little this time. The man then does not understand how she was going to pay them off in full. The girl promises to pay off as soon as she receives her share as a member of the royal family. Yudin shouts that his sister has reasons not to have money. He explains that it is because of the families of soldiers who died in battle. His sister pays them an allowance every year, so she is always short of her own funds. The princess notes that this is self-evident. These people fought for the royal family. Looking after the remaining members of their families and helping them is the least they can do for taking their relatives into battle. The princess considers it her duty. The heroes look at her in silence. Yuta thinks that he may have jumped to conclusions about her. Aluna suggests that they put off talking about money. The main question now is how exactly she intends to win Duke Homel over to her side. Lin says that at present, gangs of marauders are running rampant within the Duchy of Homel, and the material damage is estimated at 30 billion gold. These bandits are former warriors of the destroyed Stuttgart. So she plans to get his vote in exchange for settling this issue. Now she wants to know the opinion of the heroes. Jacques understands that she wants their group to deal with these guys. The girl confirms this and says that Arthur will also join them. Arthur nods at first, then asks again in shock. The boy doesn't understand why they need him too. The princess says it's unfair to send them there alone, and besides, he's no use here, so he basically has free time now. Arthur continues to lament. Lin sends the heroes on a mission and says that she now relies on them. Jacques asks her not to fail in the conviction of the 2 dukes. She asks for this, does not worry. Then the man notices something. He turns around and sees Arthur mumbling, noticing that he is completely different when Lin Carlo is not around. The guy screams to be left alone. Without Mrs. Lin, he is not capable of anything. Jacques wonders if he's not trying his best for her. If he keeps acting like this, he'll never get her approval. Yuta also chimes in. He is interested in Arthur's social status. The guy answers that he and Mrs. Lin Carlo have strong ties. The hero notes that this is great. Arthur, son of the second Count of Rickelmer, graduated from the Knightly Academy and was the best in his class, and is now a knight apprentice to the beautiful, charming, and refined Lina Carlo. Yuta privately doubts that Lin is refined, and out loud asks why Arthur is an apprentice. Isn't he already a full-fledged knight? The guy answers that his mistress hasn't recognized him as such yet. The hero comes to Lisa, who is repairing a fur coat. He wonders if it must be hard for her to do this all the time on her own. The girl confirms this and demands that they hire an auxiliary mechanic, that they at least once thought about her when they were throwing away all this mess. Yuta was lost in thought when she mentioned something. He wonders what makes Arlio so strong. Lisa doesn't know the answer to this question. She thought he should know better. She said that the connection with the magical fur is a kind of deal. The hero agrees with this, but he still does not understand what determines the specificity and potential of the fur. The girl says that this is primarily the power of the Ludia core. And on the other hand, the innate elemental elements also have an impact. Although 90% is still determined by the core of Ludia, and yet neither the structure nor the principles of interaction of all components are completely known to anyone. Everyone uses them simply because they understand how. The higher the quality of the core, the better the performance of the machine corresponds to the pilot's Ludia value. And if you look at it from this angle, Arlio is clearly not a masterpiece, with its requirements for at least launching, and if you think about it, maybe it's not about him at all. The hero doesn't understand what she's talking about. Lisa turns to Yuta and suggests that it's all because of his abnormally high level of Ludia. Yuta himself is silent, thinking about these words. At this time, Yui thinks that Emina is dead. She still can't quite accept it. The girl starts talking about the unrivaled Knights of Steel, but she is interrupted by a knock on the door. The man calls Lady Yue and says that the Emperor wishes to see her, so she should go to the audience hall. Regarding her friend she asked about earlier, the one who was sold to that merchant, he says that he has some demands. Yui happily asks if he was found. They tell her that not yet, because the guy joined a small country called Rudvi, where he had some friction with the military. Yui is scared by the information about the military. She wonders if everything was resolved safely. The man doesn't know the details yet. They are currently sending special forces there, so we'll have to wait a little longer. The girl sadly thinks that she misses having a hero around at such moments. She wonders if the pain in her chest will ever subside. She remembers Yuta's face and quietly calls his name. The girl is brought into the audience hall. The king says that he has heard that she has been feeling depressed lately because of Emina and wonders if she has managed to cope with it at all. Yui replies that she is deeply touched by His Majesty's concern and, frankly speaking, cannot say that she has recovered yet. The king interrupts her. She shouldn't force herself, but he has found some interesting documents in the old archives. They say that the Great Sage's shrine tomb is located deep in the Devil's Forest. He plans to send a research team there to verify the authenticity of this information. Would Yui like to join? The name of the legendary supreme sage is Rafshal, and it is rumored that he is the creator of the first combat mech. The king is interested in what she will say. She can't sit locked in her room all day. Maybe a change of scenery will do her good. The girl thinks about his words. She agrees with them. Sitting in her room, she gives in to heavy thoughts, so she really would like to join the expedition. The man allows her. He has already instructed her to make the preparations, but so she will now discuss the details with him. The servant thanks her for agreeing to take part in the expedition to the shrine. Yui replies that it is not necessary because it will be good for her. She will be able to distract herself there. She is told that the expedition currently consists of 3 scientists, 2 highlighters with stats over 20,000, a dozen 10,000ers from different countries, 20 mechs, and 50 soldiers for security. Yui considers this impressive. However, this is entirely justified, since thousands of giant beasts once rampaged in that area, so it would have been extremely difficult for a small group of people to do this. Although the man notes that all these animals, of course, have long since died out, the girl understands this with a little fear. A new team greets her. It's Mary from the US and Enrique. They are happy to meet each other. Yui introduces herself in return. The man says that these 2 are the same participants he spoke about earlier, Highlanders with indicators over 20,000. The girl is pleased to meet them. She hopes that they will work together. In her mind, she asks Emina to forgive her. Yui won't be able to recover if she doesn't do something now. They announce readiness for departure and ask her to board. Yui whispers about the unrivaled Knights of Steel. She believes that, be that as it may, sooner or later they will certainly come face to face. The heroes are transported to the Homel Duchy of the Melteria Kingdom. They are greeted by the Duke of Homel. He asks if they really delivered a message from Her Highness Lina Carlo. Arthur bows and hands over the letter, saying that the princess has given the Duke a personal letter and asks him to read it. Homel is surprised that it is personal. He doesn't even know what this poor princess can offer him. Arthur starts to get angry after these words, but Aluna stops him. Jacques thinks that this guy is still in her loyal knight mode. The Duke asks if they will really deal with the bandits in his domain in exchange for his vote for Yuden's accession to the throne. It sounds intriguing. It is a rather bold proposal. The man didn't think that this brainless beggar could come up with something like this, but in any case, he agreed to this proposal. Arthur gets even angrier and tries to attack the Duke with his fists. Aluna stops him again, and Jacques thinks that this guy is really bad. The heroes go outside. Aluna suggests splitting up and looking for information about the marauders. Jacques divides everyone into pairs. Their goal is to find out where the bandits are hiding. They will meet at this place when the evening bell rings. Emina asks why she ended up in a pair with the hero. Yuta sheepishly says that they should have been distributed evenly. The girl thinks about his words. The guy thinks that this is terribly awkward. Yuta asks if Emina has gotten used to it yet. She replies that she has a little. Then they fall silent again. The hero tries to ask her what she is interested in. The girl says that he doesn't have to force himself to talk to her. After a while, Emina says shopping. At first, Yuta doesn't understand what she's talking about. The girl explains that it is a hobby what he asked about. Now he understands, so she likes to go shopping. Since they are planning to gather information anyway, maybe they should go to the local shops. Emina agrees, but is it appropriate? The guy replies that everything is fine. The girl looks at the price tags with horror while they try to sell the hero a vase. The man asks if they like the vase. Yuta explains that he doesn't need it. The merchant doesn't leave him alone. The vase is so wonderful, why not take it? The hero screams in frustration. Is the man's hearing really bad? They continue to show him the vase while he explains that they just wanted to find out if he had heard anything about the marauders who have been ravaging the area lately. The hero is so surprised that he can't finish. The merchant says that in that case they had better go home. Yuta doesn't understand. The man again with more force asks them to go home. The heroes leave. Yuta is annoyed that they interviewed 10 people but no one told them anything. Emina assumes that they just don't want to talk, although it seems like they know something. Yuta asks if she finds this strange, since shouldn't the activities of these bandits cause problems for the locals? Then someone calls out to them and asks if they are the ones sniffing out the bandits' activities. The men claim they have something to tell them, but they need to go somewhere more private first. The heroes think about the offer for a second. Emina agrees to go. She would like to hear what they have to say. Yuta is not happy with this proposal. The heroes enter a narrow alley when the blonde man says that they seem to be conducting some kind of investigation. These people suddenly grab their weapons and promise that they will not let the heroes succeed too much in this, since they are indebted to many of these bandits. Emina does not lose her head. She grabs the blonde man's hand and strikes him. Then she neutralizes him and takes the knife. The dark-haired man tries to be menacing, but the girl stops him. She orders him to lower his knife and push it to her companion. The man is frightened and does everything. Yuta picks up the weapon. He is in great shock, however, given her military background. This was quite expected. Emina begins to ask the first man if he is from the band of robbers. He replies that he is not. Then she asks what they owe them so much. The man explains that the robbers take food and money from the nobility and then share with them. The girl's next question is when they arrive and where they go. The fair-haired man doesn't know. They come without warning and leave in the same way. Emina asks where. He answers that perhaps somewhere in the area of Mount Dina. She wonders what else they know. The men swear they know nothing else. After that, they are released. The attackers run away, arguing over who is more to blame for what happened. Yuta admires Emina because she dealt with them in the blink of an eye. The girl replies that they still haven't managed to find out anything, so they need to get back to the task. They continue to question residents. Here on one of the counters, the hero notices a hairpin similar to the one Yui was wearing. He attracts Emina's attention and asks if she likes anyone. The girl is very surprised and blushes from such a question. She stutters and asks why he's asking about something like that so suddenly. Yuta replies that he just has one, though it's about a girl she doesn't know. He says that they are separated now, and he has no idea where she might be. The guy never got around to telling her how he feels, so maybe she doesn't even think about him. He sighs bitterly and says that perhaps he should have confessed to her earlier. Emina listens to him silently. Then the bell rings. The heroes understand that it is time to meet the others. Yuta asks the girl for forgiveness for starting this conversation with her and offers to go. Emina thinks that this is hopeless and calls the guy by name. She says that she is sure that he will meet this girl again and then he should definitely confess his feelings. Yuta agrees with her and gives her his word. The hero asks Arthur how it went for them. The guy replies that they asked quite a lot of people, but it seems that people simply do not want to talk about it. Then Yuta asks Aruna. She says that it is the same for them. The local townspeople are somehow too taciturn when it comes to these free bandits, and it seems that in their eyes the heroes are more like scoundrels than they are. Yuta knew it. He thinks that Jin is also unlucky in this light. Jin appears from behind and asks why the hero suddenly thinks so little of him. They actually got quite a bit of information about the location of their lair, their overall population, and their leader. Yuta finds it amazing and wonders how they managed to get the locals to talk. The man replies that it's all thanks to this guy and points to his companion. He is very surprised and asks again if he heard correctly. He didn't do anything. He remembers just pounding his fists behind Jin's back. The others think it's very mean and that he looks like a gangster himself. Jin says that, judging by the overall picture, the raiders' hideout is located in a cave at the foot of Mount Den. They are armed with about 30 magical mechs, and at the head of a certain brave man nicknamed King Lion. The boss always wears a lion mask, hiding his face, and it's not hard to guess the reasons why the bad guy needs to hide his face. The man believes that the king's name is widely known among the people of this country. Yuta realizes that this could cause them trouble. Jin replies that this is just speculation and that they have a night raid planned for today. A little later, the heroes go to a place near the third ascent of Mount Den. Jin says the transporter will stay here, Largo and Falma will stand guard just in case, and everyone else will have to move out except for Vajura due to repairs. Largo and Falma agree. The man then suggests they begin the cleanup operation. The heroes accept this and suggest getting it over with quickly. Arthur shouts loudly who this Lady Lin Carlo is. Jean yells at him to shut up, this is a night raid. Yuta looks at the mechs nearby and asks Emina how she is doing with the new Artemis. The girl replies that this mech is quite easy to pilot without getting used to it, so she thanks them. She is told that it is hers just on loan. Then Yuta remembers and asks what Reza meant by saying that the mech's armor is too special. They are about to answer but are stopped. The heroes see sentries in magical furs. Emina notes that there are only 2 of them, they can be dealt with quickly. The hero replies that no, if they are going to organize a full-scale raid on them, it is still too early to show up. The girl then asks to provide this to her, and allow her to demonstrate Artemis to him in all his glory. She uses her power and shows Blackout. Yuta is very surprised, so that's what's special about this mech. Aruna sees his surprise and says that it's really cool, in the dark the mech is almost invisible. The sentries notice Emina too late, and they don't even understand where the blow came from. Then something appears from the darkness in front of the second sentry and strikes the top of the mechanism. From the already lying fur comes the question, was it really an invisible enemy? At this time Emina stands right on guard. The heroes talk about what happened. They talk about the camouflage, because of which the enemy could not even react. In this situation, they think that there will be no problems with the raid on the shelter. Panic has set in inside the shelter. They are shouting that contact with the lookout has been lost, asking someone to go check. Someone heard that some guys were spying in the city. Others don't understand why they heard it only now. King Leo, who had been watching this silently, orders everyone to take up arms. The robbers don't have time to do anything when the explosion goes off. Aruna asks to ignore the infantry. Their main goal is to destroy their mechs. Yuta agrees he will go in the center and leaves the flanks to her. The heroes rush forward. The bandits shout that the enemy is already here. Yuta at this point gathers his strength and attacks the bandit mech, destroying it. So he makes blow after blow. The hero destroys the magical mechanisms with one blow. The opponents standing a little further away discuss who the hell they are too strong. Another asks the leader what they need to do. Yuta finds himself facing the last 3 opponents. The Lion King asks if they are Duke Holomla's personal troops. The hero replies negatively, they are not one of them, they are just mercenaries hired to deal with the bandits in exchange for the Duke's services. The leader asks again, and he wonders if this means that there is room for negotiations, so maybe they will arrange them first, because it might be worth it. Aruna asks for forgiveness because they will not negotiate with the raiders. Then the Lion King is ready to fight to the death. Yuta interrupts the conversation and asks them to wait at least 1 minute, because the townspeople's position regarding the bandits still causes some concern, so he really does suggest listening to what the chief has to say first. The Lion King at this point comes out of his suit and says that first of all he wants to thank them. The hero is surprised by these words. The man continues, he thanks them for the chance to explain himself, he appreciates it. The Lion King recalls that they said they were a little concerned about the situation in the city, and that it was partly their fault. He says that 20 years ago these lands were still the possessions of the country of Stuttgart, despite the small area of territory. The relationship between the royal family and the people was trusting. It was a glorious country. But one day, the intrigues and cruel policies of the young, ambitious Duke Holomla changed everything. The young, beautiful queen became Melteria's hostage, the king was killed, and the common people began to suffer from regularly increasing taxes. The queen, taken prisoner, was forced to respond to the feelings of the Duke of Corona, smitten by her beauty. As a result, they had 2 children, but she herself died several years ago. Arthur adds that Duke Karen is Prince Musham's father-in-law. The Lion King goes on to say that the queen loved the people of Stuttgart dearly, and even when bedridden with illness, she wondered what she could do for them. Aruna is very surprised. Now it turns out that the head is closely connected to her. He says that he leaves guesses about this to the imagination. And he continues that overall it's a pretty sad story, they just wanted to protect their people. and they, in turn, sheltered and protected them. Yuta sums it up, they've listened to them and now they understand that they're not just highwaymen, but even so, they can't let their employer down. The leader asks if they still want to catch him then. The heroes whisper to each other. Aruna says that's exactly it, isn't it? Yuta denies it, he came up with a better solution. These words greatly surprise the Lion King. The heroes tell the Duke that they have deprived the bandits of the chapter. The man asks the unrivaled knights what to make of this. Yuta explains that they simply do not spare their enemies, so they simply removed everyone. The Duke asks if he understood correctly that they had laid at his feet only a pile of mangled furs. Although they certainly resembled those that belonged to those raiders, and there were quite a lot of them. However, he doubts that it is time to celebrate victory. The hero asks him to forgive him, but he needs to immediately inform his employer. The Duke sheepishly agrees. Jean is pleased that for the most part it worked. He addresses these words to King Leo, or rather to Mr. Theseus. Yuta repeats the name. Jin replies that the name is known in this country. The leader of the bandits removes his mask, says that he is pleased to meet you and introduces himself. He is Theseus, the legitimate son of Duke Karen. The hero reciprocates. Now it is clear to him that that story was the interlocutor's past. Jin remarks that this is all well and good, but they must not forget their deal. Tessie agrees with him. In exchange for letting him go, he promises them Duke Karen's vote in the fight for the throne. In addition, if they can arrange a secret meeting with Crown Prince Yuden, he will pay them 200 million gold. The man chuckles and promises Prince Theseus that he will do anything for that amount. Aruna remarks that it sounds good if they get that voice. Lin Carlo will certainly be pleased. The heroes move to the residence of Duke Karen. Yuta asks what kind of grave they came to. Theseus bends down to the tombstone and answers that it is his mother. He asks his mother to wait for him a little because that way he will save the people of Shatgar. Then Yuta notices something. A man approaches them, Duke Karen. He says that it has been a long time since his son was here. And then he immediately asked his parents to fork out 200 million gold. He would like to see the faces of his parents if he asked for the same. Theseus asks to be allowed to introduce his father, Count Karen, to the heroes. The man is very pleased to meet them. The boy says that these guys are great riders. The Duke notices that his son didn't mention it and says that then they should work for their family. Theseus asks him not to take his new friends away from him. Karen returns to the matter at hand and asks if he understood correctly that his son wanted to talk about the succession to the throne. Theseus confirms this, although it will be a bit difficult. The heroes head to the royal capital of the Malteria kingdom. Lin approaches Yuta and notes that everything went quickly. Now she wonders how it all went. Jin replies that everything is fine. Duke Halomel promised to vote for Yuden. The hero remembers that he wanted to arrange a meeting for someone with Prince Yuden. The princess asks again. Here Theseus appears from the side. He tells Princess Lina Carlo that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The girl remembers him. Now she understands that it was he who asked for a personal meeting. At that moment, a tearful Arthur runs up to her with greetings. The girl stops him and asks him to bring Crown Prince Yuden and to do it right now. The guy shouts that he is already running to fulfill it. Lin asks if the writer's meeting room is suitable for Theseus. The guy completely trusts her choice, but he doesn't know why he would go through all this trouble just for one personal meeting. Because Prince Mushim is his son-in-law, meeting the Crown Prince in public would be a disappointment. Crown Prince Yuden enters the room, greets Prince Theseus, and says that they have not seen each other for a long time. He also greets his interlocutor and asks to sit down. Yuden asks what the guy wanted to talk to him about. Theseus replies that the truth is that he has a personal request for Yuden, and he would like to take this time and opportunity to clear things up. The Crown Prince asks again. He does not think he can do anything. Karen's son interrupts him. He is not asking him about it now. His request is for the future when he becomes king. Yuden is surprised and asks if it is right that the son-in-law of Prince Mushim is in front of him. Theseus confirms this, but at the same time he is also the eldest son of Duke Karen. He explains that his request to the Crown Prince is to unify tax rates across Malteria and issue a decree prohibiting the persecution of people. Yuden says that he understands. He even heard that the treatment of people in some territories is terrible, but in this case, the authority of his ducal family will also be undermined. Theseus replies that he does not object to this. He saw with his own eyes the people of the Duchy of Halomel. They suffer from oppression and high tax rates, and their death rate from starvation is the highest in the country. As a person, he cannot come to terms with this. The Crown Prince asks why he was approached. He could have told Mushim, his brother. Theseus replies that he does not think Prince Musham, with his strong connections with the dukes, would accept his offer. He spoke with his father, Duke Charon, and they are ready to make sacrifices. So he asks Crown Prince Yudin to become king and save his people. The girl calls Nagisa and says that they are going to the Amu kingdom, so she should quickly get up and go. Nagisa asks again about the Amu kingdom. This name does not exist in the Union of Eastern Peoples. That's why they're heading there now. They'll make an alliance with them and go against the Ruja Empire. Doesn't she understand? The king says he'll go with them. The girl screams that he won't go anywhere. The man doesn't understand why. He is told that he and King Amu always quarrel like children whenever they meet. So they are beautiful girls, they will go and lay the foundation. The king asks about the beautiful girls. The girl gets angry and says that they are beautiful regardless of his opinion. Nagisa thinks that they do not get along at all. The girls go to the Amu kingdom. The servant announces that the king is waiting for them and asks them to come inside. The girls thank him for that. King Amu greets Princess Rainal. It's been a long time. She was very small when he saw her last time. Rainal answers that her mother told her about it. She said that she highly appreciated his support. The man is surprised by such words about Rulik. He asks them to sit down and start a conversation. The princess agrees and asks to forgive her. Nagisa at this time thinks that King Amoy seems like a very friendly and nice person. She wonders why he and Majni-san don't get along so well. Besides, this smile looks like this. The king at that time says that he does not believe it has been 5 years since Ruliha left them. Time flies so unnoticed. Princess Rainal suggests that he move on to the main topic. In truth, they were here as ambassadors of the Eastern nations. As the man had probably already guessed from their relations with the Ruja Empire, they were here to discuss the possibility of concluding an alliance with him and the Union of the Eastern nations. The king grimly replies that he is sorry, but such an alliance seems unlikely to him. Rainel does not believe what she has heard. These words surprise Nagisa too. The man explains that it's actually simple. The Amu kingdom doesn't trust the alliance. The girl shouts that the situation between the Amu kingdom and the empire is tense. Isn't that so? Then it will be mutually beneficial. The king agrees with her, but says that the alliance of the Eastern nations forced the fourth country to secede in a short period of time. The princess replies that this must be the strategy of the Rugia Empire. The man wasn't sure if this was really the case. No matter how big the Rugia Empire was, he didn't think they would have enough strength to break the alliance in such a short time. It is quite possible that there are collaborators within the Union. The girl tries to deny it, but the king interrupts her. He asks if the Union is really so good that it can be trusted to such an extent. Rainal does not know what to answer to this. The king says that in any case his answer will remain the same. He says with a serious face that whether the enemy is his enemy or not is not important. Nagisa notices that the atmosphere around her has changed. So this is what a serious King Amu looks like. Where did that noble king go then, with his noble face? Then she notices his eyes. She says out loud that now she understands that this man was in love with Ruli Hassan. The princess turns to Nagisa. King Amu also notices the girl. This frightens her greatly. The man stands up and towering over the girl asks her name. She replies that her name is Kusado Nagisa. The king asks her gloomily why she thinks that. Nagisa replies that when he spoke of Ruli Hassan, his expression was kind. After these words, the princess yells at her companion. Because she is being rude to the king, so she must immediately apologize. Nagisa continues to say that she knows this expression very well. To herself, the girl thinks that she remembers it since she has seen it up close many times. She remembers Yui reflected in Yudo's eyes. That's it, that expression when you see someone you love very much. The man falls silent for a moment and quietly asks why women can see right through men so easily. The king begins to cry and admits that of course he loved Rulika. The princess looks at this with surprise. King Amu asks to bring Majni here. He wants to continue the discussion about the alliance with him. Rainal does not understand. Earlier he said that he cannot trust them. However, this concerns the union of the Eastern nations, and this is a completely different story, in contrast to the kingdom of Amuria. He says he must admit he has become a bit sarcastic. Simply because this is the country of his love rival, how can he not trust the country from which the woman he loved and her daughter come? Princess Rainal says that it looks like the alliance went off without a hitch, and it looks like they both made peace, and thanks to that, Amuria's safety is ensured. She thanks Nagisa, as it's all thanks to her. The girl replies that she did nothing, or rather nothing, for which she could be punished. She does not have time to finish speaking when a loud knock is heard. The girls are scared. They enter the room and see the kings fighting on the floor. The princess is angry and screams at them so loudly that they stop acting like children that the windows break. Night falls. Majni says that in any case, thanks to this, The Eastern Alliance and Amuri will now be safe. Princess Rainal notes that from what King Amu said, there is a traitor within the alliance, so they cannot rest easy for now. The king agrees but does not understand what the point of betraying them is. A rumble is heard. They are told that there was a landslide ahead. It looks like it was not an accident but man-made. Rainal repeats, is he really saying that? She is interrupted and told that the radar has detected an enemy 20 mechs ahead. The princess shouts whose they are. She is told that it is unknown since all national identification marks are hidden. Rainel turns to Nagisa. She asks what needs to be done. The princess apologizes and says that this will be the companion's first battle. Nagisa, horrified, replies that she cannot. She is asked to pull herself together. Lasbella, Idante and Basim are announced to be ready for use. The princess asks what about her lair. It turns out that this magical mech is undergoing major repairs and cannot be used. The men call out to Nagisa and congratulate her on her first defeat. The girl recognizes Jut and Delphin. The blonde asks her not to push herself too hard, but to just move at a pace that is comfortable for her. The dark-haired man asks to show them the results of her training. The girl is silent for a second, and then with a forced smile says that she will do so. She gets into Lasbella, activates it, and shouts that she is moving out. She steps out doubtfully. The girl starts the battles thinking that this is what a real battle looks like. They are not using training swords here. They are not training and are not holding back. Then the guy yells that one mech is heading towards her. Nagisa thought she was prepared for this, but here their own lives are at stake. The girl is lost in memories. The teacher explained to them that in Aikido there is no limit to the number of techniques. Of course there are fundamental techniques, but they will talk about what lies beyond mastering them. Yuta asked if this meant that they had already mastered Aikido. Nagisa then silently called him stupid. The teacher explained that this is not true. He gave an example of what if the enemy has a weapon, or if they are outnumbered, or if they are in some other situation. As long as the opponent looks human, all you have to do is crush or drop him. The teacher demonstrated this technique in Utah. He explained that if they observed the enemy's movements, they would be able to come up with ways to suppress them. Yuta then screamed in delight at how the teacher had managed to do it. Nagisa remembers the words that even movements they haven't learned will be natural, as if they were professionals. She gets into a stance. Now it's clear to her she needs to crush. The girl defeats the first mech. Then the second. She asks herself not to be distracted now, to calm her mind as she would have done during Zazen. At this time she takes out the blade. The furry man's eyes glow with anticipation. It is not so well known, but Aikido is also included in sword techniques. Her father, who was strong and serious, once said that he could not compare with her when it came to fencing techniques, so she is confident in herself. The boys are discussing how many they've won. Delphin calls out to Jude and says he's got 3. He laughs. When he's done he'll have 4. The others count 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The boys are surprised that the mechs are running away for some reason. The dark-haired one turns to Nagisa and asks how she is doing. She also says that the 10th fell at her hands. Everyone sees that Nagisa is incredible. They don't understand what is this bluish-white aura surrounding Lasbella. They have never seen anything like it. At that moment, Nagisa turns to them and asks if the mission was completed. The day of voting for the succession to the throne arrives in the kingdom of Malteria. The Prime Minister announces that the Duke of Karen has not yet arrived, but since it is time, they will begin voting. The method of voting for each voter is to place a sign in the ballot box with the candidate's name. It goes without saying that this is an important vote to determine the next king. Whether it is Prince Mushim or Prince Yudin, he asks that you consider your choice very carefully. Blur suggests that they start the vote with the second Prince Bildero. He agrees. He stands up and says that he believes that they do not need a weak king. What the kingdom needs is an absolute ruler, so he is for Mushim. Next up is the first princess, Rudrid. She says she is choosing a king who will bring peace to the country, so she votes for Yudin. Then comes the second princess, Lindila. She thinks that a kingdom ruled by Yudin sounds boring, so she chooses Mushim. The third is Princess Lin Carlo. The girl stands up and says that the person who will rule the kingdom must be someone who can understand people's feelings, and that person is Yudin. The next vote is for Prince Mushim. Duke Ladamart is for Prince Yudin. Duke Barrelma is also for Prince Yudin. Yuta reasons that at the moment Mashima has 3 votes and Yudin has 4. He happily understands that the crown prince is in the lead. There are 2 votes left. If everything goes smoothly, then Yudin will win. Blor announces Duke Holomel next, and the hero notices a strange expression on his face. The man explains that after much thought, he has decided to vote for the king who will make the country richer, and that it is not Prince Yudin. Yudo exclaims in surprise. Mushim smirks. The Duke votes for Mushim. He starts laughing and banging on the table, tells Lina Carlo that the battle is over, and then tells Yudin that he himself will become the next king. The princess notices that Duke Karen has not yet voted. Mushim says he is sorry, but he has already made sure that the Duke's vote is in his favor. They all know Karen's character. The man keeps his word, and he has already promised to vote for him. Yudin cannot believe it. Line thinks that Duke Karen is really like that. He is a master of his word. But then what is Theseus' goal? Then they announce that Duke Karen has arrived. The door opens. Mushim and the others did not expect to see someone enter. This man turns out to be Theseus, who is holding a folder in his hands. Mushim asks him what he is doing here. Theseus looks gloomily at the prince. Theseus first hands over the certificate of family inheritance that his father has already signed, and then replies that from today on he himself is Duke Karen. Mushim slams the table in frustration. The prince insults the new duke, and he, not paying attention, says that he wants a world that will be calm, where everyone is equal and no one is subject to pressure. At this time, he puts a sign in the ballot box. Theseus believes that as a king, it would certainly not be Prince Mushim who could do this. The prince insults the guy again and shouts that this is unforgivable. Lin shouts back that it was decided by a fair vote and the result is obvious. Prince Yudin has been chosen as king. Mushim does not give in. He demands that she shut up because he is the only king here and Yudin is incompetent. The minister tries to calm him down. He asks her to accept this decision because the result was clearly defined. Prince Mushim pulls out a knife and, saying that Blur should not dare to order him, stabs him in the neck. The man, interrupting himself, asks what the prince is doing. The others freeze in shock. Mushim repeats Blur's words about recognizing the decision. First of all, it was his incompetence that led to the prince being in this position. At this time, Yuta cannot believe in the death of the prime minister. The prince asks Lin Carlo if she thought he hadn't prepared in case he lost the vote. He sends out his personal soldiers, declares the vote invalid, and demands that they deal with Yudin. The third princess does not lose her head, grabs her brother by the hand and runs away. Jin shouts at her to quickly run away from here with the crown prince. Aruna does not understand how they can escape. The prince has probably already taken control of the castle. Lin suggests going to the underground hangar, where her Odin should be. When they get there, she freezes in confusion. Not only her Odin, but every single one of them has disappeared. Then Prince Mushim appears. He says that he feels sorry for her. He knew that they would want to escape from here, so he moved all the furs in advance. Now they are no better than rats in a cage. He had already told her simply because her Ludia value was a little higher. She should not be arrogant. The heroes begin to retreat. Jin doesn't understand what to do now. The enemies are becoming more and more numerous. The third princess answers that they can only keep their distance. Yuta attracts their attention. He points to the furs and asks if he is a slave. The girl says that this is the fur of Ruzek, the hero who founded the kingdom and their national treasure Viktolf. However, even with her Ludia value of 48,000, she cannot activate it, and this is very annoying. Yuta understands that this is a hopeless option for them. Jin shouts that it is not impossible and that it is easy for the hero to get there faster. The guy does not agree. Have they really forgotten that his weapon level is 2? Lin and Jin shout in surprise. He kicks the guy with the words, does he really still, after all, believe that the value of his weapon is only 2? Yuta rubs his bruised back and starts to climb. He says that if he remembers, the situation is similar to the first time he used Arleo. And the cockpit is the same. He doesn't believe he can actually move it yet. Because if it doesn't work, his friends will be captured by Mushim and probably killed. The hero puts his hand on the panel and continues to wish for the fur to move. Viktolf actually lights up. All the heroes freeze in shock. Mushim shouts that this is simply impossible. How could Viktolf activate? The girls look at what has happened in surprise. Mushim continues to shout that it is impossible for Viktolf to move. Yuta is glad that he can control the mech, but he doesn't know what to do without a weapon. He counts his opponents and decides with determination whether he can handle 5 mechs without weapons. He starts moving and instantly appears next to the enemy, who does not have time to understand anything. Prince Mushim also exclaims in surprise. Viktolf turns out to be moving too fast. The fur can deal with an enemy with 1 blow. That one flies into pieces. Yuta performs multiple strikes and flies through walls. Jin is amazed. It's more than he expected. Lin just freezes in shock. Prince Mushim is horrified and says that they were the pride of the Meltari Highlighter fleet. He believes that 3 of them would be defeated with just 1 blow. The princess replies that it is natural because Viktolf is in front of them. The girl notes that the mech, according to legends, requires a Ludia value of 200,000 to activate. It has no equal among other mechs. Jin asks in shock about 200,000. Does that mean Yuta has it? Lin interrupts him and confirms his thought. That's what was expected from the pilot whom she allowed to defeat her. The value of the Utah ore is likely beyond the ability of modern instruments to measure. because its value is simply staggering. The hero lets go of the controls at this point. He didn't think the mech would be more sensitive than Arleo. Because of this, the guy misses the hit. However, nothing remains of the enemy's blade. Mushim looks in horror at the fact that the axe has broken. The soldier tells him that it is dangerous here. He asks to retreat and leave the rest to the fur ranks outside. At this time, Jin shouts to Yuta that Arthur is already on the transporter, so they need to get out of here. The hero agrees and opens the door. On the way out, the heroes realize that an ambush has been prepared for them here. Yuta asks to wait a little, now he will clear the way. The guy grabs the railing. Lin shouts that this lift is fixed on the rails. She asks to wait, but the hero interrupts her. He has already raised the platform. Yuta yells for everyone to get out of his way and throws the platform at them. So he throws all the furs off the bridge. The hero turns to his friends and says that he has cleared the way for them. The genie notes to himself that the release was harsh. The man is worried about the carrier, so he suggests that they go quickly. The other part of the team is attacked by mechs at this time. Emina notices this. She does not understand what is happening. Nanami promises that she will protect this place until everyone returns. The guy behind the wheel sees a mech running fast. This is Yuta. He is happy and shouting that he sees his friends. They are okay. Then Nanami attacks him. The hero tries to stop her. He is almost crying and is happy that the girl can do such things. He tries to get her attention again. She doesn't hear him and uses force. The guy didn't expect this at all. Nanami is happy and says that he was caught. Emina is horrified that Nanami's blow has no effect. The girl's attention is drawn to Jean, who tells them that Yuta is in the fur, so there is no need to shoot. Nanami is surprised that it is Yuta. She is now worried about what kind of fur it is. The hero does not know how to tell everything, so he promises to do it later. First, they need to get to the carrier. Jean calls Lisa. She asks what happened. She hopes he has a good reason to distract her. The man says he will explain later and asks to get ready. They will start as soon as they return. Jean thinks they always make things complicated, then notices the radar. Yuta sees it in front of him. Aruna asks the hero if it's not amazing. There are many mechs in front of them. Yuta thinks that with such a number they will hardly be able to protect the carrier again. The hero orders everyone to get on the carrier and leave first. He himself will stay and delay the opponents. The same ones keep coming. The heroes don't understand what Yuta will do. It's dangerous. The guy says that everything is fine. He'll just distract them from the carrier a little. Nanami says that if he's going to do something like that, then she will stay too. Yuta is surprised and tries not to let her in. The girl explains that if they leave him alone, he will recklessly spread the word again. The boy continues to say that it is dangerous. Nanami asks if he is not confident in her fighting ability. The hero thinks she is right. Her moves were amazing. He apologizes out loud and says he would be happy to accept her help. Jean asks if they have finished their conversation. He asks the others to get on board. They are already taking off. The man turns around and asks Yuta and Nanami to be careful. The hero must protect the girl properly. Nanami also asks the others to be careful in response and says goodbye until they meet at Duke Karen's residence. Yuta suggests that they now deal with the opponents. The mech screams that the carrier is flying away. He orders them not to let them escape. They must catch them, but he is immediately grabbed from behind. Then Yuta attacks the soldiers. The others don't have time to understand what happened, why the mech suddenly took off. The hero shouts at Nanami to use the enemy's steam vent to block their view. The girl realizes that, in other words, all she needs is to cut them into pieces. The guy confirms this. Nanami attacks the soldiers again. They shout that she is running to them. The attack happens with lightning speed. The opponents realize that they have lost sight of the heroes again. Yuta thinks that if they don't distract them enough, they will definitely continue pursuing the ferryman. He shouts to Nanami that they need to run downwind. The girl is pleased by the loudness of his voice and agrees. It's been a while since the guy was alone with Nanami. How nostalgic. He asks the guys to be careful. They will be apart for a while, so they definitely need to meet at the residence of Duke Karen. The others are moving towards the duchy at this time. Emina hears the sounds of explosions and asks Aruna if she thinks everything is fine with them too. She replies that Yuta is still there, so there is no need to worry. But as Emina notices, her interlocutor is clasping her hands tightly from excitement. The blonde girl understands that Aruna is simply not being very honest with herself. Finally, everyone arrives at the residence of Duke Karen. They are met by the former Duke. He asks if they are okay. He did not think that Mushim would go so far. Lin replies that they are fine, only his son was taken prisoner. The man begins to worry about Theseus. The princess justifies herself by saying that she wanted to take him with them, but they were only able to pull out Yudin. The prince also begins to apologize because of his weakness Theseus. The man says that everything is fine. Mushim cannot take the Duke's life. Here a servant bursts into the room and asks for forgiveness. The Duke is surprised because he has guests now, but the man who entered says that it is urgent. He reports with horror that there is supposedly a large-scale invasion of mechs from the kingdom of Malteria, numbering around 500 mechs. The former Duke remembers Prince Mushim darkly, calls him a dishonest scoundrel, and orders the entire army to be called in. Even if he is his son-in-law, he will have to teach him a lesson because he has gone too far. Lin says that they will help in that case too. Jean doesn't understand what we mean because there are 500 furs there if not more, so it's frivolous to promise that. The girl doesn't see a problem with that. The man then demands that she not forget and prepare a substantial bonus. The princess agrees, it sounds justified. Aruna asks if she understood correctly that she and Emina will be in front and Falma will be behind. Jean confirms this, it will be good, and Lorgo will be protecting the ballista. The girl then suggests trying to contact Vajura. Jean agrees with her. Then Lin intervenes in the conversation. She asks what about her. Aruna did not think that she was seriously going to participate in the battle. The princess sighs. Why do they think of Yuta as an ace despite the fact that he is far away, when she is so close? Meanwhile, Yuta continues to push forward, destroying enemy mechs. He meets with Nanami and asks if these are all the pursuers. The heroes come out of the fur. The guy is worried if the girl is okay. Nanami replies that she somehow managed, but something happened. She shows the surprised hero the device. Yuta sees that it is a communicator. Nanami tells him that it seems to have fallen during the process and broken. The guy regretfully thinks that they will not be able to contact Jean and says out loud that they must go. The lands of Duke Karen are already nearby. The heroes head there and look in surprise at the residence studded with arrows. Yuta says that this is definitely the residence of Duke Karen. It looks like they were attacked, but where did everyone disappear to? The guy is sure that Aruna and Emina can't be defeated so easily, so he is sure that they are okay. Nanami also notices the oddity that despite the battle debris, there is not a single mech nearby. The hero agrees with her. They need more information, so he suggests going to the city center. The heroes head to the tavern. While the girl enjoys the meat, the boy silently looks around the place. Then he hears someone discussing how Prince Mushim apparently used the royal army in the battle yesterday. The interlocutor is surprised, because their lord is the prince's father-in-law. The other replies that that is why they pretended nothing happened. He must have been in such a hurry to get rid of the furs that he hired people to clean it up. The second one does not understand how and where the first one knows so much. He says that his brother serves in the royal army. Yuta reasons that it was a great battle. Naturally, they will brag about it. The men discuss who won. The first one answers that of course it was the royal army. It was all about numbers. The royal army was superior in numbers. The second asks if Duke Karen was killed. He is told that he was not, as he fled towards the territory of Duke Lademalt. All the other princes are under the control of Prince Mashima. Yuta realizes he has heard enough. He asks the waiter to bring him a toothpick. The man does not understand him. They do not have a decorated toothbrush. Then the hero says that nothing is needed. He realized that there is nothing like this in this world. The conversation between the men continues. The first one says that something strange happened. The Duke's army of mechs was almost unharmed. The second one doesn't believe how this is possible against the royal army. It's too good to be true. The first one disagrees with him. He says that their Duke's frontline mechs are very strong, but they retreated, leaving only one mech to cover. Fighting off the army alone, but after the rest retreated, the last mech vanished into thin air. The second one doesn't believe these words again. Yuta thinks it's Emina. He moves the chair and suggests Nanami to go. He already found out everything. Everyone is alive. Meanwhile, the other heroes discuss the plan. Jean notes that they seem to have managed to unite with Duke Lademalt's army without any problems. Tell Lina that Duke Barelma is located further away. They need to unite with him. The man asks if they can handle it, since even so they will have about 300 furs. The princess replies that there is something, one of the generals of the royal army who could help them. But to win him over, she needs to meet him in person, secretly, and with that said, she suggests sneaking in with Emina. Everyone is surprised by this choice. The three of them climb into the cabin with Arthur. Emina complains, because 3 in Artemis' cabin is absolutely unreasonable. Lin doesn't understand her, she's so slender, and Arthur can be folded very compactly. The princess orders them to go forward. Emina continues to shout that it is impossible. Lin is glad that she even has a headrest. Emina is offended by this and promises to throw the princess off if she says that again. She asks why Arthur is following them around. The question is ignored. The princess says that the general probably knows where Odin and Centaur are being held, so why don't they take them if that's where they're going anyway? Yuta and Nanami continue to advance towards them. The hero tells the girl that one of the fighters is their ally. She understands, but how will they distinguish them from each other? The guy suggests doing this. He suddenly appears in front of the mechs and announces that they are a group of mercenaries. The Peerless Iron Knights, led by Princess Lin Carlo, have arrived to support them. One of the soldiers shouts that he heard about them. He is glad that they came to their aid. The other calls them ignorant idiots who dared to violate the sacred vote. They will not receive mercy. They must be captured. Yuta thanks Tog for the explanation and strikes him. Nanami screams that she wants to fight too. The sounds of breaking furs are heard in the forest. The man then thanks the heroes for their help. This is all he expected from a group of mercenaries led by Lin Carlo, and they are clearly stronger than rumors say. Yuta says that without their help they would not have managed. The men introduce themselves. They are the Royal Guard, members of the squad of defenders of Princess Rudria. The hero remembers that Princess Rudria is Lin Carlo's sister. The soldiers confirm this and say that, unfortunately, their princess, along with the other princes, was captured by Mushim. So they were heading towards Duke Ladamat's army, who were in the same situation and were going to ask for help. Yuta realizes that the royal army intercepted and attacked them. This is what happened after they left. The guy explains that they were going to meet the army of Duke Ladamalt. Would they mind going together? The man happily agrees. He did not expect such an offer, but they will willingly keep the heroes company. On the way there will be their fort, where the soldiers of their detachment are quartered. There they will be able to stop and replenish their numbers. Yuta replies that this is gratifying to hear, so they will do so. Lin announces that she is the third princess of the Malteria kingdom, and she has come to meet General Orlia. She points to one of the men and orders him to call General Orlio for her. He agrees. Lin asks Emina to be careful as this is enemy territory. The girl replies that in the worst case she will save her tail, so let the princess be prepared for this. Arthur asks the lady not to worry. He will do everything in his power to help get out. Then someone calls out to Lin. A man runs in and yells that it really is Princess Lin Carlo in front of him. He thought his soldiers were making fun of him. The girl greets Orlia. They haven't seen each other for a long time. The general falls to his knees and starts screaming that they really haven't seen each other for a long time. He tried to visit her many times, but she was always absent. Days and weeks were spent looking for her, and he couldn't find her anywhere near the royal family. The man can't put into words how much he missed her. Lin tells him that she avoided him precisely because he behaved that way. Orlia calms down and asks why the princess came here. The girl suggests getting straight to the point, and asks him to lend her and Yudin his strength to stop the rampaging troops of Muskim. The general realizes she wants him to betray Commander Cruz to side with her. Lin explains that if he doesn't want to, she'll have no choice but to cut him out of her life. The general shouts that he is ready for anything but this. She knows what he feels for her if she looks at him like that. Orlia gives in, gets down on one knee and declares that he will dedicate his life to the princess and do everything in his power. Lina likes this. It will be enough for her if he does everything in his power. Negotiations begin. The princess proudly says that this is what she expected from Mushim. He did not have the courage to destroy Odin. The general suggests that it is because Odin and Victolf are national treasures. The princess calls her brother a coward. She sees that everyone who was captured and their mechs are all being moved to the Marden base. The girl remembers that the Marden base is a small supply base, and therefore does not have much military power. They are probably going to use it as a transit point. She orders Orlia to call all his units. If they are going to attack, it must be done right now. The general believes she is right. He will do everything. Only the man, if the princess allows, has one question left. Does she have the one she thinks about? The image of a hero appears in the girl's eyes for a second. Lin replies that there is no such person because she has other things to do. General Orlio shouts that he is glad to hear this, and now asks for forgiveness and full of determination goes to carry out the order. Arthur shouts to Emindono that they agreed to cooperate with them, so they can relax a little. Emina believes that even if they became allies, they should not let their guard down, especially considering that they were enemies recently. The princess asks Arthur to stop. Emina can do as she wants. The guy doubts she won't be able to rest then. Then a huge man with a hammer appears behind him. The princess doesn't have time to warn Arthur. The hammer falls on the guy's back. He only manages to scream. The girls are very scared for him. At this time, the princess is grabbed by General Orlia. Lin does not understand how this happened. The man smirks. Did he really think that he would always be her Orlia? Unlike her, Commander Cruz accepted him immediately. Lin starts to get angry. How did this Cruz predict the general's possible betrayal? The princess screams that she is just a damn witch. Orlia demands that the rider quickly get out of the fur and without jokes, otherwise Lin Carlo will become a head shorter. Emina silently thinks about what to do next. They tie everyone up. The princess asks Orlia where he is taking them. The man takes a cigarette and answers that, of course, to the Marden base. In a normal situation, in a small supply base with virtually no firepower, there is no better place to place a decoy, in this case, her sister and those incompetent dukes. General Orlia is sure that the rebel army will happily take the bait, not even suspecting that they already have 1,000 mechs deployed there. The princess gets even angrier. The man orders everyone to load up immediately. At this time, Yuta has already arrived at the fort. A soldier comes to them and reports that they have received a message from scouts that Princess Ludia, who was captured, has now been delivered to the Marden base. The commander says that this changes everything radically. The hero clarifies what has changed. He is told that Marden is used as a supply base, so the defenders are unlikely to be more than 100 mechs. He believes that it is simply a transit point. Yuta now understands everything. This is their chance to strike a blow to the opponents. The man confirms this and says in delight that he expected this from the group led by the third princess. The guy is embarrassed because he is constantly praised. Rudia's army heads to Marden base. They inspect it from afar and see that there is no movement, everything looks normal. The commander sees no problems. Yuta finds such calm strange. The man doesn't understand what the hero means. The guy explains that there are so many important people in captivity to say in this case that it looks standard. He doubts whether it is possible that this will be true. The soldiers get upset is that the case he claims that it's a trap. Yuta is surprised by this reaction. He mentally asks them not to make such faces. Because of this, it becomes more and more difficult for him to tell them not to go there and why Nanami is with them. In this case, the hero agrees but wants to go and take a closer look in the fur. The commander is afraid, is it too much? Yuta interrupts him. It will be bad if everyone goes and it will still be a trap. But if he goes alone, the risk will be much lower, and he himself will cope one way or another. The commander continues to object. It sounds plausible, but the hero interrupts him again. He quickly runs there and back. The man does not understand why the guy speaks as if he is going on a mission. She approaches the base, but there is silence, no patrols or anything else. Could he really have been mistaken? Then mechs start to appear from their hiding places. A whole army of mechs appears before the hero. The terrified commander thinks he knew it. It was all just a trap. Yuta is also tense. There are more enemies here than he can count. Nanami begins to pray for Yuta. He thinks at this time that if he is surrounded, he will have no choice. He must break through. The hero shouts to Victolf that they must do this.